Welcome everybody to episode number 23 of Real Time. My name is Ryan, and with me as always is the Danny Houston to my Jim Carrey. Robbie, how you doing?
I knew you were going with that one. It made the most sense, to be fair.
Yeah,
I'm good.
I'm
good. Thank you for asking. How are you?
Good. I mean, we've got our 2020 wrap-up special out the way.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's just jump into another new year, shall we? We'll start off with some stuff from the last episode, and then we'll jump into what's new this year.
There's a lot to talk about from the end of last year, I guess, as well, that just came out in the news that we haven't caught up on because we're away over Christmas. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about that too. But yeah, there's definitely a lot to talk about. I'm going to start with this because you brought this up last time. We were talking about Sean Bean and the number of deaths, and how I estimated how he's definitely not even close to the top number of deaths. Mm-hmm. I was about right. I guess it was around 20-something. It turned out it was by the end of 2019, so he might have had some in a movie last year, but by the end of 2019, he'd died 23 times on screen. And also, if you remember, I remembered a film where he was pulled apart by horses, and you were like, it's like
Braveheart.
And I was like, no, it's a movie that he's in. It's a 2010 film. It's called Black Death. And it happens to him in the movie. So, yeah. Spoilers if you watch that movie, but he's going to die. So, you might probably expect this anyway.
It's kind of 50-50 if you're watching a Sean Bean film at this point.
No, it's not. This is what we've established. It's only 23 times.
I know.
Anyway, so just because I knew you would follow up with that question, well, then who is the person with the highest number of deaths? It's Danny Trejo. He seems to currently hold the highest number of on-screen deaths by 65 at around the same time, early 2020.
What?
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah. Considering he's in a lot of things, I guess that makes sense. But there you go.
Wow. 65.
Our friend Skip will be very happy to hear that it was Danny Trejo. As of a side, because I thought this would be interesting, it was reported by mid-2018, the actor, or rather actress, with the highest number of kills on screen is Mila Jovovich. She's reportedly killed 1,296 individuals on cinema. Her kill count probably bolstered by the Resident Evil franchise in particular. Yeah. Behind her is Dolph Lundgren with 919, Arnold Schwarzenegger with 842. All three have probably added a few since, to be honest, since that tally was made in 2018. So, but I found that just by doing very basic research on the internet, your outcome may vary. But
yeah, see, just on the Arnie thing, if you take into consideration Terminator 2 and how he stopped Judgment Day and all that, how many future Terminators did he potentially kill?
I think it's
eliminate it says from the timeline.
On-screen death.
Oh, okay. See, not then potential. You can go into semantics.
Yeah, not potentials. Not potential. On screen.
Oh,
that was the important word there, Ryan. Right. On screen. I also wanted to follow up because I did the research because you actually posed this question and then I said, I'll look it up for you. And I did. I listened.
We'd mentioned one other time about Trump being in Home Alone 2.
And then we'd also you brought up him being in Little Rascals a couple of times.
Yeah.
And then you asked why. Why was he in there? Well, according to Penelope Spheris, talking to Esquire back in November of 2016, originally the role of Waldo's dad, which is the character that Trump plays in the movie, was just going to be some guy. Until one of the people at Universal suggested Trump would be a good choice for the rich kid. She didn't actually know who Trump was originally by name at the time. She just obviously blanked on who it was. But once she found out, she seemed to think it worked as an idea. And when they had the screenings of the finished film, it paid off as the reveal of him just pulled laughs from the audience. Apparently, he was basically the same as he is now, arriving for the shoot, making a grand appearance with having been driven up in a limo right to where the camera crew was set up and waving to the crowd. He filmed a scene, then got back into the limo and just drove off. According to her, he did 10 takes of his line, and they were all exactly the same way over and over. She's quoted in the article as saying, "At least the guy is consistent. He is a consistently self-involved narcissist. That's what I experienced then, and that is what I'm experiencing today."
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
It was interesting. So there you go. There's a story as to how he ended up in that movie, in that role.
I probably would have preferred just some guy, to be honest. I mean, looking at today's society, some guy would have sufficed.
I mean, back in, what year was that? Came out in 92? Yeah, 92, 93, 94. It wasn't, Trump wasn't
he wasn't
the thing
Trump
that he is
now.
He was what people thought of him, and the same reason he turned up in Fresh Prince, and the same reason he turned up in Home Alone, and, those sorts of reasons. Yes, 25 years on, it looks a little bit ridiculous. Yeah. Given the context, but at the time, not so bad, I guess.
And just on that, I've seen a couple of things online of people saying that they want him digitally removed from Home Alone 2, or even like Little Rascals as well.
Just replace him with some guy.
Yeah, with some guy. Just something. That's all you need in Home Alone 2. Just some guy on a green screen stage telling Macaulay Culkin that the lobby's down the hall and to the left.
Yep.
Then replace him. That's all you need. That's all you need.
Oh, man.
Right. Now that that's out of the way, there is a Disney clusterfuck of information.
So it was the
that we need to get through.
investors relation day, and at the end of last. Well, so we recorded, I think, the day before it happened.
It happened, yeah.
And
Last episode 22.
We made some predictions, and they were a little all over. Nothing about the future of Lucasfilm like I thought there might be, because I thought, with Kevin Feige, would he end up? But no, that didn't get announced. But there were certainly lots and lots of new announcements. Some of the stuff had been rumoured, some of it we knew about, some of it was completely brand new. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we'll start with the basic one, which has nothing to do with the actual content, but actually to do with the service. So Disney is expanding Disney Plus to this thing, with this thing called Star. And it's going to be added to it, and it's all the non-family friendly and other sourced content, and it'll be added for an extra cost to Disney Plus. Some areas it'll come bundled, some places you have to pick. It's to do with licensing agreements.
Yeah.
In some nations it'll come with ESPN, where ESPN isn't already on another platform. So New Zealand's not one of those cases for us, but other countries will have it. So like Fox released brandings like Alien, Predator, Planet of the Apes, TV shows, all that sort of stuff will appear on there. Some crossover with Hulu, but not stuff that you would get in the States, but isn't licensed anywhere else.
Yeah, I remember seeing stuff like Lost from ABC, the Die Hard movies, amongst other things. So some of them are a lot of the Fox R-rated stuff.
Yeah, or Disney, ABC adult content, so Touchstone Pictures, all that sort of stuff.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed for Whose Line Is It Anyway?
It's possible. It's always possible. The idea is that the accounts by default will not have it unlocked, so you have to add it as a parental guide. So basically you have to tell each account that can access this content, and if so, it can. So if you've got kids, they will only see the traditional Disney Plus without you accessing that, which is quite a good idea. So the amount is supposed to go up a couple of dollars in most regions. So I think here it'll probably be like $13 or something silly like that, from $10 or something, I think is what I read. But they only released, I think, the European US prices for these sorts of things.
So you can only roughly sort of go on what they're being charged and equate it to what we currently are.
It could go up. It could go up higher here. They could just go as a premium and go $14.99 a month or something. Who knows? But yeah, some countries won't have it, and some of it won't be added to later. So I think we're again, because we rolled out Disney Plus here, and the countries that got it first, they all get that quite early, like between February and April, I think. Some countries will have to wait longer. So
yeah,
there was a hell of a lot of Star Wars news, and so I will let you.
Very Star Wars heavy.
It was very Star Wars heavy. So I will let you go through this, and I will just comment as we go through it. So I've tried to put as much detail in here, but you'll remember the rest of it, I think.
Yeah, mostly. So there was a whole bunch of Star Wars series, live action and animated, but we'll touch on the live action first that was announced. So there was Rangers of the New Republic. That seems to be set between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens, I think, if I'm not mistaken, sort of around Mandalorian time.
I was going to say, it seems to be like on that basis of what we've seen in Mandalorian, where they've got like outposts and they need rangers to kind of keep law and order. So it makes sense. So there was definitely a hint of that. So not much details were given other than that, I think.
No, I think the only sort of small details we might know now is if you've seen season 2 of The Mandalorian with Cara Dune and her now being a ranger or whatever of the New Republic, and then there's a rumour that Bill Burr's character could be in the series as well.
Oh, that would make sense.
So I don't know, I guess watch the space for now.
Yep.
There was also Ahsoka, which I think nobody was really surprised about. Everyone was like, lost their shit anyway, but I'd say this will be heavily welcomed, and I mean, it's going to... I think from my understanding, it's probably going to focus on post-Rebels Ahsoka and all that character sort of arc, and following on from like Ezra, 'cause there's been rumoured Ezra castings and people saying this person's going to be perfect or this person is cast, but it's been debunked.
But it could be like what's happened with other shows and other things in the past, where we hear it and they say it's not, but then it actually ends up being, which has happened a few times. I think there's something actually later on we'll talk about that's like that.
Yeah, and with Ahsoka being in season 2 of The Mandalorian and her specifically name dropping
mild spoilers
here,
by the way,
if you haven't seen it already.
And then mild spoilers. They're not going to ruin your enjoyment of Mandalorian, I think, unless you're a hardcore fan. If you're a hardcore fan, you've probably seen it. So.
Yeah. But Yeah, so with those name drops and characters in it, then it's potentially that's where it's going to go.
That makes sense.
Speaking of The Mandalorian, season 3 of that is coming out Christmas 2021. We don't know whether that's Christmas Day or just in December, so it's later than the past 2 seasons, which has been October, the end of October. It's come out. There's not much more on that. I mean, if the past 2 seasons are anything to go by, it's just going to get bigger and better.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked in our end of year wrap that I'd mentioned about in the gallery episode that the volume was like twice the size. It was like wider. It was taller.
We'll come to that in a second because there's actually a bit of news which I mentioned in that, which we'll talk about shortly. Yep.
But and also at the end of season 3, there was the final episode.
In season 2.
Season 2, sorry. The end of season 2, there was a post-credit sting. Spoilers ahead of the Book of Boba Fett, which was not announced initially. Hence,
they left it until the series.
Until the end of the series.
They didn't even announce it at the Investors Day.
I mean,
at first it was confusing because I said this to you. It wasn't a logo, and the text implied it was like Mandalorian. I was like, "Is it just the 3rd season of Mandalorian?"
Yeah.
And it was saying Christmas, which we'd heard was when it was going to be the next season. And then all of a sudden, no, it actually is its own thing. And eventually they released a logo for it. So it is its own spin-off series of The Mandalorian in some respects. Although it's kind of still its own thing, I guess.
Yeah. Still in the same sort of universe, but it's its own thing.
But the thing about it for me, and this is not so... I'm trying to do this without mild spoilers, but not really spoilers. Is that the way that the lines are drawn into that second season, it feels like there's unfinished business where this series will kind of shoot off, but kind of come back in or be adjacent to the Mandalorian as well, because of the way it's so directly connected to events in of itself. So I feel like it may be a limited run side spin story that comes back into the Mandalorian almost. I kind of trying to want to say more, but doing so would potentially spoil Mandalorian for people who haven't seen it. So I think just watch it and you'll understand. But
I kind of feel as though it'll be a traditional recap of what's happened from like the Mandalorian of this character, but from that character's perspective, if that makes sense.
And what goes forward from there.
Yeah.
But eventually, I think it's going to cross back over, considering
it looks like
what he's doing is going to cause conflict, I think, for lack of a better term. You were talking about the soundstage. Disney announced that they're building 3 more of these Stagecraft Studios. That's what they're called the Stagecraft Studios. So after they expanded the one that they already did, they're building 3 more, 1 extra in LA, so they'll have 2 of them, probably because they're going to have this increased output, obviously.
So they're going to need it.
They're going to need it, as well as 1 in London and 1 in Australia. So I get the feeling with this ILM connection, they're going to start using it more for other non-Star Wars related products. So the one in Australia, for example, could be used for Thor, for example. I could see them quite easily doing that.
Well, I mean, if it's still technically owned by Disney, sure.
It is. I mean, you know, so I could see them doing that, and they'll just use, I assume it's going to be built in the old Fox lot, so they probably own that now, I suspect. I don't actually know. So, but yeah, that's quite impressive. So yeah, doing one in London. No mentions where those will actually be built in the locations. LA, I assume it will just be an extra one in the current location.
Yeah.
But London and Australia. ILM has a base in London. I don't think they've got one in Australia.
So would the one in London, would it be Pinewood?
Well, it could be. It could be one of the studios or they could be building near there, but they could also built up their own lot. ILM itself, its base, I think, is actually in central London. They've got a visual effects office there, and I'm pretty sure it's right in the central part of London.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not going to be there, I suspect, because obviously they need a certain amount of space.
Pinewood would make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
or near Pinewood.
There's Pinewood, near Pinewood would make sense because they use it a lot for movies. But there are other studios out there in other spaces. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But yeah, we probably would be. But we'll probably hear eventually they'll announce where it was or is going to be built. So yeah. Well, there's more series, so we should probably move back to that. I just thought I'd mention that because they brought it up in relation to those shows.
There was also the Cassian Andor series, which comes out in 2022. It's being directed by Tony Gilroy. Shooting started at the end of this past November in 2020 in the UK. We knew this was coming a while ago. I think not long after Rogue One came out.
Yeah, there was a short announcement. I think once they announced they were in Mandalorian, it wasn't very long after that they said they're going to do other shows, and this was one of the ones that was announced. And then very shortly afterwards was the confirmation of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, which was also talked about in the thing. It's being set for 2022, set 10 years after Episode 3.
So it's sort of halfway between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope for those of you playing along at home of the timeline.
Obviously, it has a connection to you watching, was it Clone Wars and all that sort of stuff, so that has to fit into that somehow as well.
It would be more Rebels at this point.
Rebels,
so it'd be pre-Rebels.
Pre-Rebels, sorry, I forget these two things
No,
confused.
it's all right.
They announced...
That's why you've got me.
That's all right. Yeah, too much better than me. They did announce, to some surprise, but also not surprise for some people, Hayden Christensen is returning as Darth Vader.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting because they're like, well, Darth Vader's involved in this somehow, and like, well, how's this going to work? And
I potentially feel as though it's going to be some sort of flashbacks.
Possibly,
because I don't... Well, apart from the obvious side jokes of Anakin not liking sand, I don't think we're likely going to see Darth Vader in full costume on Tatooine.
Yeah.
And unless Obi-Wan goes off planet and he somehow, comes across Vader, or they don't come in contact, but they on the same planet or something.
The other part of it that doesn't work for me is like, obviously Vader doesn't know about both of the children or anything to do with that until the events of Star Wars, so there can't be like he's going to Tatooine to try and find a child or Obi-Wan, and he can't like it's weird. There's got to be some master plan going on,
and it would negate the line of dialogue from A New Hope where Vader says, I haven't felt a presence since long before, and he's talking about Obi-Wan because he hasn't felt his presence for so long. So
they might retcon that with this.
Yeah, there might be some sort of retcon going on, or it might just be flashbacks of a younger Anakin.
Yeah, well, they implied he was returning as Darth Vader. I wrote this down as such, not young Anakin or anything like that. So, but we'll see anyway. Shooting starts in March of 2021. We were talking about this funny enough. People was in Boston in the UK, which is north of London. It's in kind of middle England, and but people thought it was in Boston, the United States. So everyone was making these jokes about Boston accents and all this sort of stuff. It was so funny, and I was just like, guys, I think they mean Boston in the UK.
Like, may the farce be with you.
Yes, exactly.
It'd be like that with like weird Bostonian accent. Jesus. That's one that I remember seeing. It was like a TikTok that I saw on like Instagram or something. Yeah. And it's
for people listening, Boston, UK, not Boston, US.
Yeah. And I have actually seen something else go around just briefly on this that I don't know how true it is, but Rachel Bilson, who's married to Hayden Christensen, apparently hasn't told, was it their daughter or their children, that Hayden Christensen is Darth Vader.
Oh, no.
So he hasn't told them that it's their father.
Oh, God.
So that'll be a scary thing to find out when they get older, I suppose.
Yeah.
Going to the animated series now, there's The Bad Batch, which I mentioned in a end-of-year wrap. So there was a backdoor sort of series arc in the last season of The Clone Wars.
Yep.
Where it featured on The Bad Batch, where it was a bunch of... not fully formed clones, so they had their own sort of not mutations, it's the wrong word, defections, that's probably a better word, so hence why they're called the Bad Batch. But they're more of like a military sort of team. You've got like a sniper, you've got a heavy, you've got your techie guy, and your general grunt sort of person.
They're like the A team of the clones.
Yeah, I suppose you could say that. I mean, they do love it when a plane comes together.
Exactly, that's what I thought. They might love it.
And this seems to follow after Order 66, and as the Empire becomes more into power, and it seems to feature a younger General Tarkin, which you see some of in Rebels as well. So this will be again before that. Oh no, you see him in Clone Wars as well. I've just remembered. So it'll be more continuation of that, and I guess what they're doing and what happens to all the clones after that, because there's got to be that period of, do we abandon the clones altogether and bring in stormtroopers, or do we just give the clones all new stormtrooper gear? I guess this will probably answer that.
And because they were like quote unquote defective, they weren't part of the Order. Is that my understanding? They didn't follow the Order like all the other clones did. Is this my understanding, or did they?
I'm unsure at this point.
Okay.
But I think one of them who joins in the Clone Wars final series, who is initial clone from earlier in the series, but he seemed like lost. He got lost or on another planet, but he got rescued. I think he had his inhibitor chip that would allow him to follow that order, but I'm not sure if the others did or not, because they were defective. They might not have had it.
We'll leave that. We'll leave that.
I'm unsure for that. But another thing within the Bad Batch is that it showed a couple of shots of a younger Fennec Shan, played by Ming-Na Wen in The Mandalorian. So that's got fans excited as well, is that we see more of her backstory leading into,
Where she
I guess,
appeared.
the Mandalorian
Yeah.
and in the Book of Boba Fett. Spoiler.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, that's a lot to unravel.
That's
just on
a
that
lot
one.
just for that.
That's
yeah.
that one.
It was also Star Wars Visions, which is an animated short film celebrating the Star Wars galaxy through the lens of Japanese anime creators. It's coming in this year, 2021. I put this down because it reminded me of a anime TIE Fighter short which came out a couple of years ago. Do you remember seeing
I
this?
vaguely remember this. I would say you're probably right. I suspect that probably the reaction to that is what's allowed this.
Spawn this, yeah.
But it's also much in the same way that they had those the Batman ones and the Matrix ones where they did the different short stories with different animation studios. So it's kind of keeping in that line as well.
Yeah, I have a feeling it might be similar to like the Animatrix, where it's like stories that tie in, but it's all slightly different animators, but still very Japanese anime.
They announced a few other series. There was an announcement of a Lando Calrissian series, a young Lando, just called Lando, I think it was what it was. I just wrote Lando series when I was going through this.
Just touching on that, it seems as though it's going to be set in two different timelines, so it may feature Donald Glover and Billy D. Williams. So it may be like potential Billy D. Williams talking about his past. And having...
That would make sense.
I just said his name, Donald Glover.
Yeah, playing the young version.
Acting that out sort of thing, so...
We should give people hope that maybe some of this, some other bits related to a solo film might get picked up in this, which would be quite interesting. So we kind of were talking about whether or not they would go down that path. I guess doing that part of it alone may actually end up bringing that part of the angle back a bit.
Yeah, and we'd probably see how he becomes Baron Administrator of Cloud City.
Yeah, eventually.
How he got his way into that.
Yeah. They announced the Acolyte series, which was set in the High Republic era. They've actually just, I think we should probably talk about this, they've gone through and officially announced the various eras and redivided them in this new Disney canon. I saw the post the other day.
Yeah, I can't remember what
and that was listed under this, so the High Republic era. They didn't give really much other details other than that, did they?
No.
And then there was a droid story, which is a R2-D2 spin-off thing with him and C-3PO, I think is what I remember, and BB-8 is what I remember.
It seems about right.
I think was it animated?
I think it was, because I think it's one of those, kids love droids, so we're going to make it more of a kids sort of show. But I'll probably still watch it. Other fans will probably still watch it.
That's probably true. I mean, it's be part of this. These are part of Disney
it'll be Disney Plus. So I mean, you get what you pay for, I suppose.
So Lucasfilm went through and announced some other stuff related to film-related stuff. Some of it was Star Wars, some of it was not. They officially confirmed the Willow series, which is set decades, quote unquote, after the original series. The shooting begins in March in Wales for a 2022 release. We talked about this last episode. The next and, quote, final Indiana Jones film is shooting late spring 2021 for a July 2022 release.
And this will be Harrison Ford's last one.
That's why they're saying final, I guess. They've announced a film of Children of Blood and Bone, which is based, I think, on a book series. That's under a co-production between 20th Century Pictures and Lucasfilm. No more details are given about the shooting or when. They just announced it. They confirmed that Taika Waititi is doing a Star Wars film, which obviously we already knew about.
Still no idea what it's about or what it's going to be called.
No, or when it's going to come out. Patty Jenkins was confirmed to be doing a film for the Star Wars franchise, so the next film that she'll probably undertake before she returns to do Wonder Woman 3. And she announced through a connection to her family and jet fighters a Rogue Squadron film, which is not determined when exactly this will take place and how it'll fit in, but people are expecting some returning characters and some new ones, I guess.
Yeah, and going by the rough logo that's been released, people are thinking that it's going to be before The Force Awakens, because it looks like the X-Wing in the logo kind of looks like Poe Dameron's X-Wing, so people are kind of thinking around then, but we could be wrong. I mean, it could be similar to the game on the Nintendo of the 90s.
Of course, the Rogue Squadron titles. The film is confirmed to be the first of the next lot of Star Wars films out, so it'll be 2020.
Yeah. And I think that would include Taika's movie as well.
I think, because the plan is, I think, if we've talked about in the previous episode, is one Avatar movie, one Star Wars movie, one Avatar, one... So Taika's film would be the 2 years following, I would suspect, at that point, and then whatever is next after that, 2 years after that. Moving on to a Nat Geo thing and some other Disney Plus series. Chris Hemsworth and Will Smith are both doing a Nat Geo 6-part series each. Hemsworth's one's called Limitless, and Will Smith's one called Welcome to Earth, which I think is a bit on the nose, but you know. because people always misquoting that "Welcome to Earth" thing from Independence Day.
Probably
Both
be
of
about
them,
aliens, is it?
yeah. No, so Will Smith's one, "Welcome to Earth," is about like the planet and life, I think, and stuff like that. And Hemsworth one, Limitless, is about pushing the body to the extremes, essentially. And they get him doing some pretty crazy stuff that he says quite through the trailer, like could potentially kill him. So it's quite interesting. Like holding breath and swimming like in cold water and all that sort of stuff and all this sort of things. They're worth checking out the trailers. They're both for Nat Geo and they're both appearing on Disney Plus. It's throwing some money around to get some celebrities to do some crazy things, I guess. They announced a whole bunch of returning Disney Plus series and movies. I'm just going to whip through these. Make comments as you're excuse me. We've talked about it before, but a Mighty Ducks series, which they're calling Mighty Ducks Game Changers, with Emilio Estevez and Lauren Graham. And they showed a trailer for that, and a Turner and Hooch series, which they didn't show things publicly for. A Beauty and the Beast prequel series, which I'm sure, as we've talked about plenty of times, do we really need it?
Well, I think there's many Beauty and Beast prequel movies.
Yeah, this is based on the recent film one, I think is my understanding. So it's a prequel series based on the live-action movie from a few years ago.
Sure.
A retake of the Swiss Family Robinson, because of course they want to not have the one that they claim is racist from 50 years ago. Percy Jackson, the Olympians TV series. So if you were a Percy Jackson fan and went, I wish I could have had more of that, then Disney's hearing you.
Yeah,
and
because there was, 2-3 movies?
Something like that. And so now they're making a series called Percy Jackson in the Olympians. And another series based, I think it was on a book, I forgot to write it down, called The Mysterious Benedict Society, which had these kids doing, like, they're part of a mystery team. They showed a trailer. It looked quite cool for kids, like a mystery thing. And they become by this spy group, but they're all these random genius kids put together by this eccentric social, like rich socialite kind of guy. They confirmed a Hocus Pocus 2 film, which has been we've talked about in the past, for Disney Plus. The 3 Men and a Baby remake, which, as I said, is actually technically the second remake for 2022, which we've talked about. They announced a new Ice Age movie for Disney Plus and an animated Night at the Museum film. It was confirmation of the Lion King prequel, which we've talked about, and the Little Mermaid live-action film, which again we've also talked about. They announced a Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie, which sounds a lot like Who Framed Roger Rabbit kind of thing, where they've got like characters exist in a world with humans.
Okay.
So they announced I didn't write them down, but they announced who was doing the voices of Chip and Dale. I've completely forgotten. It's not important.
It's all right. Something for the next episode, maybe?
Yeah, well, it'll come up again, I'm sure. They confirmed that Pinocchio, or we talked about this previously, that there was a chance that these movies were going to go straight to Disney Plus, and they confirmed that. Pinocchio and Peter Pan and Wendy are both confirmed for the Disney Plus release, and there was a confirmation of Jude Law's Captain Hook, which would previously come out, which we talked about as well. All these, as I said, been mentioned or rumored in previous episodes. So Pinocchio is Robert Zemeckis. Peter Pan and Wendy is what's his name? Lowry, the guy that did Pete's Dragon and oh my god, my brain's gone faint. So they're doing both of those. So they've both done stuff for Disney before, clearly. So they're both perfect choices. They also announced a sequel to Enchanted called Disenchanted for Disney Plus, and a very long in the running Sister Act sequel, Sister Act 3. Which I don't know who was asking for, but cool, whatever.
I thought there already was 3 Sister Acts.
No, it's just 2.
Oh.
Just 2.
All right, that's news to me.
Yeah. And at this stage, Cruella and Jungle Cruise, which we're both re-talked, seem to be the only ones still focused on a cinema release. They showed a scene from Cruella for the specific investors, but the public stream, they didn't show it, so nobody saw any more than the still that's already been released. And Jungle Cruise was the same stuff we've already seen because the movie's been delayed. Oh, wait, there is more, though.
There's still more.
There's still way more. Raya and the Last Dragon, which was announced previously, is now coming to Disney Plus as a premiere access title, so like Mulan was. Disney Plus animated series based on Disney animation things included a Big Hero 6 series called Baymax, a Zootopia Plus series. Princess and the Frog's Tiana gets her own series called Tiana. Moana gets her own series. and an original animated musical called Enchanto, which has got the people that did Hamilton involved, and a new African-themed series called Iwaju, made as a co-production with an African-based company called Kugali. And so that they were very impressed because they were labelled as like the African Disney or something like that. I can't remember in the news, and now all of a sudden they're actually working with Disney on a series, so everyone was very excited about that. Pixar news came up afterwards. The Pixar focused on Spark shorts, which is their little mini shorts, and also a continuation of the behind the scenes series Inside Pixar, which has already started on Disney Plus. They've also started a series called Pixar Popcorn, which are shorts based on existing films and characters. There's a full series for Doug from Up called Doug Days, which I guess is like Dog Days, I guess is where they're going with that. Cars is getting a series for some freaking reason because that thing continues to make money. And there was an original Disney Plus Pixar series called Win or Lose, which came from the behind the scenes of one of the films. I think the characters were talking about seeing things from different perspectives, and it's about perspectives and how people's days turn out differently, or from the same story from a different perspective. They announced 3 feature films. One had previously been announced was Luca, which they can reconfirmed. A film called Turning Red, which has a girl that turns into a giant monster that's a red monster. That's where the Turning Red comes from. And crazily enough, a Buzz Lightyear origin story film with Chris Evans as the voice of Lightyear. Well, so the idea, if you remember...
It's very patriotic, so, I mean,
yeah,
it's sort of got
the idea as well is that apparently in the Toy Story universe, the toy that it's based on is like... It's like having those toys that have, like, the sound-alike voice in the toy, and it's based off a live... Apparently in the universe, it's supposed to be a live-action film, so it's an actor.
Oh, I see.
And so he's supposed to sound kind of like it, so, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this works, so... but yeah, they've been working on this for a long time, apparently.
It's almost sort of very meta how with the actual Woody toys, it's actually Jim Hanks, Tom's brother, who does the voice. So that's kind of,
I guess,
poking fun at that. And, not poking fun, but...
relevance to that. Yeah, that is kind of close enough, but not quite the same voice.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So that was just like the first lot of stuff, and then they went on to the Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my god! So it was just like we were talking about. I'll start with this as well. Or do you want to go through these maybe? For
yeah.
So you do the Marvel stuff. I've talked myself over the storm already.
Yeah. So there was a WandaVision trailer for January 15th release, which is a few days after this recording.
Yeah, there's a few promotions things have come out since. So
yep. There's confirmation of the cast and hints about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and the addition of. I don't even want to try and announce that because I'm going to butcher it. Zoshitl?
No,
Zoshitl?
No, not even close.
Okay, please.
I'm trying to remember what it is, but I know it's not that.
I've never heard it said, so
I did hear it say. So that's a. But anyway, you can continue. We'll skip around this.
Yeah, and then the addition of
you can just announce the character.
Miss Gomez as America Chavez.
Yep.
March 25th, 2022. It's confirmed to connect to WandaVision and also the new Spider-Man, which is out December 2021, which confirms the news we talked about in the last episode. Maybe it should be Spider-Man, we're not home anymore. not at home anymore, rather.
Oh, God.
So there was also Falcon and the Winter Soldier footage and confirmation for March 2021. Feige called it a movie playing over 6 episodes,
which it definitely looked like. They showed footage, and it looked like a one of the films. Really, like it was quite good.
And I mean, going by that release date, I mean, like I said, Falcon and Winter Soldier is not Falcon and Winter Soldier. WandaVision's out here, around the world in a couple of days after this record. That's going to pick up straight away after that.
I think it is
1 or 2 weeks.
1 or 2 weeks, yeah. I think, if assuming, I haven't seen it confirmed whether or not I assume it's releasing weekly episodically.
I think it is, yeah, similar to The Mandalorian,
okay. I
would assume. This was a reconfirmation of Black Widow for May the 7th.
At this point.
There was a Loki series for May 2021, and a confirmation of the cast already announced, as well as a trailer.
Mm-hmm.
There's the What If animated series confirmed for summer 2021 in the US, plus the trailer.
Yep, that was quite good.
There was confirmation of the end of the shoot for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and information for July 9th, 2021.
As the release date, yeah, it's pretty close. Again, we're talking about this cramming things together, potentially, because it might get delayed.
We're just going to be walking out of one cinema from seeing one movie and going back in and see another, like, within minutes apart, I feel. Miss Marvel series confirmed and behind-the-scenes video shown. There's confirmation for Captain Marvel 2 with, is it Nia?
No,
Nia
DaCosta
DaCosta directing, and Miss Marvel and the grown-up Monica Rambeau as seen in WandaVision, both in the film, and Eternals full cast for November 21st, 2021.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there. There's still more.
We're still going. There's a Hawkeye series and confirmation of the cast for the series for late 2021, and the confirmation of She-Hulk and the casting of Tatiana Maslany, who is confirmed, then unconfirmed, now reconfirmed officially. Sorry.
It's what we talked about. We talked about how she said it was her, then they said it wasn't, even though Mark Ruffalo had said congratulations, because clearly he knew.
Well, he can't keep his mouth shut.
Exactly, because Tim Roth and Mark Ruffalo will be in the series as well.
And hints of others. So
hints of
it
others
seems
returning.
to be that Abomination will be back.
Yes.
There's the Moon Knight series, later confirmed to have Oscar Isaac, and starts filming in March of this year, is it?
Yeah, I think it's March. A bunch of these are all starting in March, as you may have noticed.
Secret Invasion series with Samuel L. Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn, which seems to be the Nick Fury series previously rumoured. Ironheart with Dominic Thorne. Armor Wars with Don Cheadle. The Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, written and directed by James Gunn, to be shot with the next Guardians film and released the Christmas in 2023, before the next film arrives in 2024, and a I Am Groot short series for Disney+.
Yep, there's only a little bit left, I promise.
Thor Love and Thunder confirmed. Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher. I think I'd mentioned this elsewhere, but I couldn't remember the character's name.
Yeah, you did.
For a May 6th, 2022 release. Blade reconfirmed. Third Ant-Man film, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, with all the main cast from the last film returning, and Jonathan Majors being added as Kang the Conqueror.
Which I think you mentioned as well was happening.
And finally, reconfirmed for Black Panther 2 for 2022, and finally a major announcement for John Watts' directed Fantastic Four film.
Yeah. Whew. That's a lot from Marvel. Like, that's ridiculous. So we have a couple of little bits afterwards, but I'll come back to that afterwards because they weren't announced. But that's everything that they announced. That is an insane amount. Now, I think I read something, was it 25 or $22 billion of investment into all that. That's how much like the total budget for everything was going to cost. Something around that amount. Something insane. They must have announced it during the investor thing. That is an insane amount of money.
They'll make that back easily.
There's a lot to unload and all that, and I know it was a lot to say, but dear God, Disney, jeepers.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of going where we talked about in the end of year special. It's just like the diversification here is to go, some of this is cinema, some of this is Disney Plus. It's all interconnected. But it does come back to that question we had, I think I had it early last year or maybe the year before, where it's just like, where does it all lie? Like when you realize that they're literally announcing stuff like, there's a crossover here between Miss Marvel and WandaVision and Doctor Strange and Quantumania and Ant-Man and the Wasp. Mm-hmm. And like, if you miss out on one of these things or don't have Disney Plus, how does those movies work? Do they introduce people in an organic fashion that makes sense, or does it just work better if you've seen it? Does it not work if you haven't?
Do you need this extra story to go with it?
I feel like up until this point, all the Marvel films have worked because you could just watch them and they mostly work connected and there isn't too much flow through. And if you've missed a couple of movies, you can still pick up.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is huge. Like, this is a massive amount. Clearly, you don't have to see, if you miss the What If series, it's not going to matter. They're What If stories. But if you miss WandaVision, does that impact your enjoyment of Doctor Strange, the next Doctor Strange, or Spider-Man, for example?
Yeah.
Because Kevin Feige specifically mentioned they're all interconnected. It's interesting. I think it's potentially very messy, but we'll see.
My takeaway from it is that I just hope they don't go Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. way and go, oh yeah, this is connected, but only have like the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. pop up in a location after somewhere's happened in one of the movies and go, hey, remember that part of the movie? We're cleaning this mess.
I don't think that's the case. I think this is a lot more.
I hope it is more connected, not just a small note there.
I think the interesting thing with the Fantastic Four thing will be where that goes. They've obviously picked someone who's pretty comfortable with. He's the one that's supposed to be doing Spider-Man films, so very comfortable with those sorts of characters. They definitely gave hints to it in the last Spider-Man film that maybe it was heading there for the next phase. Phase 4 would be the Fantastic Four phase.
Yeah, or Phase Fantastic Four, as some people are calling it.
So yeah, I guess it makes sense they announced that. They talked about Chadwick Boseman in regards to Black Panther 2. They said obviously reconfirmed they're not recasting, and the sad loss it was for them and for everyone. But that they're still planning to go ahead with the shoot as scheduled. I have no idea how that's going to work. It's going to be very interesting.
No, I think the rumours at this point is that they're somehow going to make Shuri the Black Panther, his sister, but we'll see how that's going to happen, I suppose. Whether they say that he died, off, somewhere else or something, or,
Exactly. I'll just go through. There's 3 more things related to Marvel that came out after this that I'll just mention. So just the other day, the Loki show creator and writer Michael Waldron has been picked up to write an upcoming Star Wars feature. So this might be the one that's like 6 years away. Mm-hmm. Who it is for, or if he'll end up being given a chance to direct, is unknown. However, this seems to be part of the connection between both Marvel and Lucasfilm that's been slowly growing since the Disney purchase several years ago. So as we said, like all of a sudden Kevin Feige's going over and helping out Disney's Star Wars angle for Lucasfilm, and then they're bringing people who have worked on Star Wars over to do Marvel, or Marvel over to Star Wars.
Vice versa,
So it seems to be growing that connective tissue between the people, the craftsmen, and the creators, and the directors and writers, to be able to bounce between all these universes. It's pretty crazy.
And speaking of like the stagecrafts before, I mean, it's probably not just going to be Star Wars specific. They'll probably see it on a Marvel film.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. Like we were talking about, they could easily, seeing they're building on Australia, they could be using it for Thor, for example. The perfect example. So yeah, and these shows that they're filming all over the place in March, some of them were using them in the UK and in LA and all that sort of stuff. Mila Jovovich confirmed her daughter Eva Jovovich, Anderson, I think is the actual pronunciation, is playing a young Natasha Romanoff in the Black Widow film. Obviously, she couldn't keep that quiet enough until when the movie was coming out, because it was supposed to be out a year ago. Yeah. So she confirmed that was the case. There'd been some rumours about it. I had not picked up on, I'd picked up on them, but it's like, it's not that important. But she 100% confirmed it. So they're excited to finally see that, hopefully whenever it comes out. You noted this. I didn't note these things, but I heard bits of it, so I'll let you.
Yeah, so Charlie Cox is apparently set to return as Daredevil in the Spider-Man 3 with Tom Hardy, whatever that's going to be called. And
Tom Holland.
That's the one. Not Tom Hardy. I don't know.
Tom Hardy's in Venom.
Yeah, that's true.
That's close enough.
See?
Yeah.
TH, they've got the same initials.
Both connected to Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, we may see with Morbius as Morbius. It is Morbius. I'm second guessing myself now. It's twice I've done that today with names of things. Tobey Maguire was apparently seen at a costume fitting for Spider-Man 3 as well.
Yeah, which we talked about in the last episode. There's a whole bunch of rumours and also confirmations of certain actors returning, but obviously had some that have said they're coming back to play different versions of the same character, so it seems like it's pretty obvious at this point.
And again, it's still potentially one of those things that it's somebody's rumoured as, but then no one's neither confirmed nor denied, so take it with a grain of salt for now.
Yeah.
So they probably could go the Spider-Verse way, and he could be an older Peter B. Parker, I think.
Oh, yeah, from the thing, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. As long as he doesn't do his black suit dance.
Yeah. Maybe he will, just for the reference to it.
Yeah, well, they did do that in the Spider-Verse film.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, exactly. Is there anything more you want to say about this Disney mess before I move on to some Warner Brothers HBO stuff that's happened since our last episode?
I really hope the investors are happy.
Yeah, I would think the investors. I expect
if they came out of that not happy, I'd be shocked.
I didn't see if the share price went up, but I'm sure it did. Yeah. Not Tesla levels of increase, but
no, they're definitely trying to push it and see how far they can go with all these announcements.
It's and the crazy thing when you look at it, most of these announcements are for just the next 3 years.
Yeah, they're 3 or 4 years. Yeah,
they're not much beyond that. There's a couple of things in there that are obviously a little bit like the Star Wars films that might be further down the track, but most of it's shooting within the next 12 to 18 months, released within the next 2 to 3 years. So that's just crazy amount of stuff. So plus all the stuff that's already obviously in the canon waiting to be released. So last episode we talked a lot about the Warner Brothers HBO Max situation, where they're releasing, I think it was work out 17 films over the next year, where they release them day and date cinema and on HBO Max for 30 days. So, obviously the first of those films was Wonder Woman 1984, and so there was a bit of news surrounding that, so I'll talk about that and then talk about all the other reaction that's happened since last time. Just let me get all this out of the way like you did with the Disney stuff.
That's all right.
So following up last time, Wonder Woman 1984 has already passed 100 million in the international box office, which was the largest box office for a film since COVID lockdown started in the US, because it had a $16.7 million opening weekend.
Still pretty good. And
HBO had reported high viewing numbers in the US, with nearly half of its 12 million subscribers watching the film, so like 6 million households basically. The numbers can be skewed because, from my understanding, most streaming services count numbers viewed if someone watched more than 2 minutes of a film.
Yeah.
So if you only watch like the first 5 minutes, you still count as one of those viewers.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that counts towards HBO. It definitely does for like something like Netflix, but it's probably still a high number. Obviously, you've got a movie that's come out that's that high profile early on, and it's free if you're already a subscriber. Of course, you're probably going to watch it. Warner Brothers seems to be happy with that launch, so they've already announced a fast-track release for the third Wonder Woman and confirmed both Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins will return to star and direct. As we talked about, Jenkins is doing this Rogue Squadron film for Disney, so the understanding is that maybe that goes first because it's further along and then back to Wonder Woman, but they said fast-track, so who knows, maybe both and just direct one straight off the back of the other and both go into post-production.
Yeah,
who knows? More people had statements about the Warner Brothers thing. Judd Apatow and Denis Villeneuve, you can add them to the list of directors not happy with Warner Brothers' choice for their 2021 slate. Apatow isn't obviously directly impacted, as his films are usually released under Universal, but he talked about how under the company... how the company of Universal came to him to let him work on deciding what to do with his most recent film, which did go to streaming at his and the studio's combined choice, and not just being told that would happen, and how the Warner Brothers should be asking the filmmakers first before making those choices. Villeneuve, obviously, however, is more directly impacted as he's directing the upcoming June movie. It's being released by Warner Brothers. He wrote an editorial for Variety, and his experience talks about exactly what Apatow means. He only found out when the news went public and stated many things, including Warner Brothers' sudden reversal from being a legacy for home for filmmakers to a new era of complete disregard draws a clear line for him. And filmmaking is a collaboration reliant on the mutual trust of teamwork, and Warner Brothers has declared they are no longer on the same team. He doesn't bemoan streaming or downplay the impact of COVID, but the point for him is that the cinema experience is what June needs, which is why it was delayed in the first place, to when, hopefully, people can go to cinemas again, and that a home release for the same time is just a win for piracy. Actors are also being obviously asked for the opinions on this and the future of cinema. Margot Robbie has also voiced her own statement on behalf of the storytellers and hopes that, quote, Warner Brothers will do right by its storytellers. Tom Hanks was asked about the move to streaming and stated that, quote, a sea change was due anyway. It was coming. The sea change that has been wrought by COVID-19 has been a slow train coming. I think there will be an awful lot of movies that will only be streamed, and it'll be fine to see them that way because they're actually built, made and constructed for somebody's pretty good widescreen TV they have at home. And there'll be other movies that will be playing in that window, and people will flock to them in order to see them on a big screen when they have the chance. But without a doubt, we're actually in the big curve of change that I think has been due, end quote. So it's interesting seeing like a quite a diverse range, and we talked about this last time that Spielberg and George Lucas had talked like 7 years ago at a university talk about the future of cinema, and I think Spielberg used Lincoln. I think he just released Lincoln around that time. And how even for him as a big budgeted filmmaker, he was struggling for people to not see that as a potential for a cinema release. I think he had the same thing with Bridge of Spies. George Lucas was talking about independent cinema. I think he ended up making Red Tails, if you remember, the fighter pilot one.
That's right, yeah.
And he couldn't get a studio to go in on investing on it for a cinema release. There was companies that were willing to put it on streaming services or direct to video or all that sort of stuff. So they could definitely see the writing on the wall with certain budgeted films, you know.
Yeah.
And as I said, there was a lot of controversy at the time, going, "Oh, they're out of touch. They don't understand. Clearly, cinema's cinema and all that sort of stuff." But as it seems,
realistically, they were ahead of the curve.
Exactly, where they knew where this was heading, and that, as Tom Hanks has said, and I think we talked about in the last episode, COVID-19 has just been the thing that's pushed it along further than perhaps it would have otherwise. It's very interesting to see. And I don't doubt we'll see more of it in the coming weeks as well. More people having conversations about what's going on with this decision. And as we alluded to in the last episode for the end of the year, this probably won't be the end of COVID delays either.
No, and I mean, we've talked about it previously and we'll talk about it more coming up, but it's definitely going to affect cinemas with like AMC closing a whole bunch and all that. But definitely, you know, cinema as we know it might just be a limited thing now. Like, you can go to like your boutique cinemas, which play like your odd documentaries, and they have like your one big blockbuster for the summer or what have you.
Well, a lot of those
to your big chain cinemas, which have all of your movies.
But interesting, a lot of that is mandated by distributors. So when you talk about those boutique cinemas having to screen something big, it's usually because they get arm wrestled into it. So like the distributor says, we have these movies you want to put on your cinema, but in order for you to take these, you have to take these films as well because we want you to take them. And so that's how they end up with extra screens for the big blockbuster film, when all that cinema wanted to do was screen those dramas and those international films and those documentaries. It's interesting the way it works, but right now we're at a point where obviously cinemas are probably happy to take anything they can get in some respect and hope that they get bums on seats. In some countries, obviously here, for example, we can go to the cinema pretty easily, but there's still a lack of content to go see in some respects. There's a need for as many small films as possible. Overseas, obviously, you can't even go to the cinemas, so it's a bit different. As part of the HBO thing I just mentioned, because I thought this was a good aside, the Mortal Kombat movie that's a Warner Brothers release has been moved from January, so it was supposed to be out this month, to April 16th. It still has a cinema release and an HBO Max release like everything else. We mentioned this in the last episode, so I just thought I'd mention that again. But yeah, it's just a slight move. There still hasn't been a trailer. They did release a poster and a logo, I think. So people are expecting there'll probably be a trailer. Since it's out in April, probably in the next month. So we'll probably have that to talk about maybe next episode.
There was also Alien series in the works at FX from Fargo and Legion creator Noah Hawley.
Hawley we're talking about because there was a Star Trek, wasn't it? And
yes.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see. I think I saw Ridley Scott seemed okay with this, and he'd made some previous comments about how where he'd taken Alien had not gone the full distance that he wanted. You'll be very happy to hear that.
Well, I mean, after the last one.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
The last two.
So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I'm still kind of sad that because of that last movie we didn't get Neil Blomkamp's Aliens follow-up. Sorry. Would have been interesting.
It's technically Alien 3.
Yeah. But who knows, maybe someday it'll happen. The further we go without it happening, the chances of it getting slimmer and slimmer, I think.
Yeah.
We're talking about cinemas before you were as well. So AMC has confirmed that the cinema chain will run out of money during this month, during January, as we noted some months back. With the situation in the US only getting worse constantly, even in the face of early vaccine supply, the chances of it surviving in the current form are slim without any outside assistance. The US government has announced $15 billion to go towards stages, musicals, musical events, locations, movies, and other entertainment venues like zoos, etc. under the plan they call Save Our Stages. It might be enough to keep AMC running for a short while longer, but if movies continue to get delayed beyond April, things may get much worse. So and
of course, more lockdowns as well, so people can't go out.
Exactly. As an aside, the last remaining large video store franchise in the US, Family Video, which still had over 250 stores operating, has ceased trading and rentals and is currently going through a plan of liquidating all its assets in the coming weeks. The company outlasted all of its competitors, including Hollywood Video, Blockbuster Video, and Movie Gallery, and the company has continued to weather the digital uptake in the US, but much like everything else, the continuing effects of COVID, much like AMC as well, have been draining the company's small resources, forcing the brand to shutter. The reason why Family Video managed to survive was mostly because it owned real estate. It bought its locations, it didn't rent them, so it owned all its assets. So essentially it was able to keep that, and so the brand will not die in debt, it will just cease to exist once they sell off their assets, including their real estate. It's a bit of a shame. It's been interesting. A lot of people posting. Obviously, we've talked about the last Blockbuster. It's the documentary.
I was about to say, speaking of that, that's still up and running. So
it is still up and running.
If you want to go to Blockbuster,
that's where you need to go. Bend, Oregon. It's still going, but it's a shame. I haven't seen if all the stores are going to shutter. Obviously, there might be some of them which are franchises. They'll go, do you want to own the store outright? You can continue. They may end up being independent. So it may not mean that all 250 of its stores. I haven't seen confirmation of that.
It'll come down to like 100 or something, perhaps.
Yeah,
depending on how it goes.
There might be 20 or 40 operators who go, I'm actually happy to keep my stock and just be independent. But the chances of that are probably slim, to be honest, compared to back in the day.
And if that's the case, they might consolidate some of their stock and just go, okay, we're closing this store, you can take this because you're a big store, or what have you,
and double up and so forth. We'll see what happens in the news, but there has been a lot of outpouring of grief in the United States for people who still like going to video stores. And obviously the impact with AMC is the same thing. It's a huge deal to have that amount of cinemas closing potentially, and it'll just take someone to swoop in and save the day, but the chances of it are mixed at this current stage. And who would want to come in and buy thousands of cinemas at this point and know that it's not going to make its money back for some time.
You'd have to be really invested.
Really invested in the future of it, really. And as I said, we talked about in another episode, it could be movie production houses going back to owning the cinemas and getting around that loophole because they look, we got the money to invest in this now, let us have it. And of course the courts is going to go, of course, yeah, you've got money, of course you're going to save it. You're going to save the industry.
You're going to make the money back anyway, so
yeah, and so 100% more profit for you, exactly, for your releases. So, moving on, we reported a few months ago about a possible reunion of Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock in a romancing the Stone type movie called Lost City of D. Sadly, it looks like that won't be taking place, with Channing Tatum now taking the role that could have been Reynolds. Bullock is still attached as an actress as well as producer. The film is described as being, quote, centered on a romance author who discovers that a fictional city that she had written about is real, prompting her to embark on a risky journey to find the city, end quote. Sounds pretty crazy to me, but
yeah, it kind of seems like a like Atlantis sort of a tale. Yeah. In a way, to me.
I don't find the combination of Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock very enlightening to me. I don't see those two as a couple.
Combo.
Good luck to whoever's producing that. Maybe it'll be better than it sounds, but I could definitely see Ryan Reynolds more.
Yeah,
with
Ryan
her.
Reynolds, Sandra Bullock, definitely, but Channing Tatum, not so much.
No.
But yeah, it kind of feels as though it's like a Searching for Atlantis crossed with that Will Ferrell movie where he's a character in a book, but he's actually a real person. Emma Thompson is the novelist.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember now. My mind's gone blank.
Oh, I was about to say Everything Must Go, but it's not that.
No.
Strange in the Fiction?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, so it kind of sounds like that as well, where it kind of seems as though it's a very similar story, but they've made it bigger.
Yeah. And it's got that romancing the stone kind of aspect to it as well that they were talking about when they first announced it.
I say bring Reynolds back if he's not busy doing Deadpool 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
and all those other Netflix movies that he's basically doing. Speaking of Netflix, Netflix has ordered 7 different productions from the UK, including productions from people including Rowan Atkinson and Sam Mendes, among others, according to the Hollywood Reporter. They cover comedy, romance, sci-fi, and horror, among others. Not to go into the details of all the show, but just wanted to know that Atkinson's show is called Man vs. Bee, which is, well, what it sounds, a man trying to kill a bee while being the caretaker of a mansion. It sounds very much like Mousetrap. Is it Mousetrap? Yeah. Mouse Hunt, yeah. Sorry, Mouse Hunt, but with a bee.
it almost seems like, I can't remember the name of the episode, but it's the one where Mr. Bean goes for a picnic and he gets chased by a wasp. Oh. And he's trying to kill it with a knife and book and his soda. And
oh, yeah.
Sounds very similar to that as well. Yeah. So there could be small nods to that, I reckon.
Could be. It's not a particularly original title, Man vs. Bee, but, could be funny. It's Ryan Atkinson.
It kind of sounds like it's a Bear Grylls sort of program.
Man vs. Bee.
Something weird.
Man vs. Wild, yeah, okay. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, there's a whole bunch in there. As I said, I don't want to go into all the details. They're all available online on the Hollywood Reporter, but in general Reporter. But they're all these UK production houses, and they've all got pretty good budgets from the sounds of things. The US National Film Registry has added 25 new films of importance. Some of the highlights include The Blues Brothers, A Clockwork Orange, The Dark Knight, Grease, The Hurt Locker, and Shrek.
What?
I don't know why Shrek. I think Toy Story is already in there, so maybe, I don't know, maybe it's important. I don't know, but I just thought I'd know that.
All right.
I saw lots of people going, obviously people who are old enough to have been around, like Shrek, and also I guess The Dark Knight, saying this is making me feel old. And I'm like, that's making you feel old? I was like, I'm looking at stuff like the Blues Brothers on here.
Yeah, Blues Brothers and Grease. And even the Hurt Locker's not that old either. I mean, that's probably the 2010. Newest one out of them.
On that list. There's more than that, obviously. As I said, there's 25, so that's just some of the highlights. There's lots of others, but I just thought they were the most interesting.
Yeah, there's still no original copy of Star Wars.
No.
How sad.
I mean, it's on the list, but it's just not in there.
Come on, George. Give the people what they want.
Well, it's not even up to George now, because he doesn't own the rights to that. It should be Disney. He should be doing that now, but they still haven't.
Yeah.
They should technically have a copy, so...
Yeah, I reckon George has that shit under lock and key for his own personal stash.
I think it's part of the sale. He probably can't. But anyway, you might be right. It might be part of his contract. It's like, I will not hand over the original.
Yeah, I keep this.
Yeah.
You can have it when I die. Even then, it goes to someone else.
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows?
Silly.
Maybe it's in a time vault somewhere.
Maybe.
The Mad Max Furiosa prequel has been given the release date of June 23rd, 2023.
Yeah, we talked about this last time with the casting and everything, and it will be interesting. I think the impact of it will be very interesting after how well Fury Road went. Mm-hmm. It'll definitely get some box office. Yeah, I realise I've left MCU thing down here, and I forgot to put it up earlier because of that Disney stuff. Tessa Thompson's been hinting about the upcoming Thor: Love and Thunder, saying, quote, and I'd say there's some cool stuff going on. We have some new characters, we have some folks potentially from other pockets of the MCU, and then we have some folks maybe that we've seen before, end quote. Not some pretty heavy hints there. There was some more discussion about her being like the king/queen of Asgard, the new one that's on Earth.
That makes sense.
As well, depending on how you want to phrase that. And yeah, it was an interesting interview, but I thought that was a very interesting quote. I forgot to put that earlier. I feel really bad not moving that.
If they're bringing in folks that we've seen before, then hopefully we see Jamie Alexander's Lady Sif, because she wasn't in the last Thor.
Oh, yes, very true.
And I mean, she was apparently off-world. Like, she wasn't mentioned, nothing was really said, but
and
people have come out and said she was off-world.
That's true. And the new Asgardian warrior, Noob Master 69.
Yes. Yes. And not to forget about Cook.
Yeah, we'll probably be the same. I just wrote this down as a blanket thing because I assume you've seen and heard this.
I've heard about it. I haven't actually.
You haven't actually heard it. No. Okay, so there was Tom Cruise on the set of Mission Impossible, yelling because there was two people who were standing less than a meter apart at a computer screen. I think is what I read, and he just went off at them for like risking the production. Mm-hmm. The audio is interesting. He does yell and swear, but he's also sometimes calm and relaxed, and you can tell there's a lot of pressure going on. The whole point for him is that the industry is relying on people like him who are producers to take the initiative to keep this industry going, for films to be made, and there's a lot of risk involved. And obviously they've had shutdowns through COVID, they've had reopens and then cases, and they've had to close down a little bit. He's spent personal money on hiring a boat. I think we talked about this previously, to put cast and crew on. Constant
him
COVID.
Getting injured.
Well, no, not this time.
Not this time, no.
But previously. There's a lot riding on that, and obviously you can see the pressure of it. Other people have come forward. I think it was George Clooney was asked about it, and he goes, having been in that role, being a producer on a high-budget film, he goes, I can see where he's coming from. I probably wouldn't have handled it the way he did, but I can still see that reasoning. And you listen to it, and it's not the Christian Bale tirade at a person for ruining his life.
Yeah, I have heard about that. That it's not like that.
It's not like that, but it is pretty heavy too. Like, he's obviously pretty grumpy, and he's threatening to fire people. Like. And you can say whether or not it's justified as questionable at that level, but there's definitely an intent, and it's very interesting. The internet's obviously having a field day with it.
As it would.
Doing remixes and images and all that sort of stuff. I really didn't want to talk too much about it, but I thought we can't get through the episode without mentioning it, so I thought I'd at least bring it up.
My only question to it is that, is it very similar to his character in Tropic Thunder?
There has been jokes about that is not far removed.
I thought as much.
There's less creative swearing.
Yeah.
There's definitely no threats of shoving stuff up people.
Everybody would have a field day if that was real.
or getting the was it the grip or whatever it is, the lead grip to punch someone in the face.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some shades of his yelling from that movie in his voice. And as I said, I suggest people, if they're interested, to go listen to the audio recording, make their own minds up on whether or not they think it's justified or not. I personally seem to probably sit with George Clooney on that. It's probably needed because it's obviously important. Obviously, people are putting protocols in place and people are advising it. But obviously, also people make mistakes, and maybe it was an honest mistake. There's two people, we don't know, they were wearing masks. I didn't hear. I assume they were. They're just standing too close together. They're trying to keep everyone physically separated. Was it perhaps a little overblown? Well, maybe. That's probably where it sits. But yeah. Hey, we were talking about sales before, and I was just wondering, would you like to own a major historic film studio?
Ooh. What's it going to cost?
Well, MGM is once again looking for a buyer for its assets due to its outstanding debt level. So what you're actually getting is not really its content, but more of its debt.
Oh.
The entirety of its studio assets and debts can be yours for just a cool $5.5 billion US.
Well, that's convenient because I don't have it.
If you had $5.5 billion, would you buy it? Probably not. I don't think I would. If that's all they had.
If I'm just getting debt and paying off the debt, then probably not.
Well, with it, you would have the ownership of the Bond film franchise rights. Mm-hmm. You'd also have franchises like Rocky, Creed, and Hobbit, and TV shows like Handmaid's Tale and Vikings, among others. And debt. Lots of debt.
Yeah, I think I'll pass on that. I mean, one other thing I'd probably have the rights to would be like the Stargate franchise as well.
Yeah, it's a big fan of
that. So
you could make new Stargate.
Yeah, I'd probably go.
If you had,
give me more Stargate, please.
Yeah, if you had $5.5 billion just to spend on the rights, you would hope that you would have more money to spend on making more of these things or finding the people to do it. But yeah, okay, yeah, Stargate's another thing that you would definitely own. So yeah, that's good. Maybe that's one reason to spend $5.5 billion US on owning it, and Bond if you want more Bond.
Yeah, probably not today, though. It's a hard pass for me today, thank you.
We're talking about making remakes of things, and I saw this, and I went, oh god, this is ridiculous. But then when I saw who was involved, I was kind of like, maybe this could work, because there's a lot of social commentary about how ridiculous the original movie has not aged very well. Seth MacFarlane is looking to produce a Revenge of the Nerds remake, which will treat the idea like it's like the 21, 22 Jump Street films with self-aware, reference-heavy take on the material.
Uh-huh.
Now, if you're aware, like, the film has aged very poorly.
Yeah.
There's a bit of nerd rape going on. There's a panty raid. There's a lot of sexist and overtly homophobic comments. It's
the 80s.
It was the 80s.
We're not defending it, but it
was the 80s.
Yeah,
I'm not defending it either. It's just that's what it was. If you go and rewatch the movie now, you will probably be like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, you'd probably still laugh at certain points, but you'd be like,
so I don't know. I mean, we're talking about making remakes. I think we've talked about this before, like when we were talking about episode 21 and 22 of Jump Street. I think it's one of those few movies where I'm okay with it because it's taking that source material and twisting it into a new idea. And I think I'm okay with reverence and self-aware humor. And it's the same reason why the Lego movie kind of worked rather than just feeling like a cash in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same people who made Jump Street. Because there was some actual storytelling and heart to the story rather than it just feeling like a commercial for a toy.
Yeah. And it sort of, towards the end, it was set in the real world as well. So you could figure out that it was this kid's imagination of the whole thing happening. So it was really self-aware.
Yeah. And so I think those sorts of things work. If you've got the idea of taking the core concept of nerds and how the idea of that, even that character type has changed in the last 40 years, you could probably do some very interesting meta commentary on it. Yeah. And there's an idea here, but if it ends up being like a straight up remake and doesn't do that, then again we go back to what we were talking about previously and in other episodes. What's the point? Like,
yeah, and I mean, like, nerds these days are not what the nerds are when nerds were back then.
Yeah,
you know, like that word has changed over the last 40 odd years. So. Yeah, I guess we'll watch the space, see what happens.
Speaking of somewhat self-aware, I guess Melissa Rauch from Big Bang Theory, talking about nerds, is producing a new follow-up series of 80s show Night Court, which will play Abby Stone, the daughter of the late Harry Anderson's character, Harry Stone, from the original show. Apparently John Larroquette will also return as his original role from the series. Most people who listen to this probably have no idea what Night Court was. Do you even know Night Court? Do you remember?
I think I know of it. I don't remember watching it. I might have been too young, but probably I know of it.
It's one of those shows that's really hard to kind of describe. It's in that block where I guess it would sit in the pre-Seinfeld kind of slightly adult comedy humor, but also a little bit wacky and silly. Okay. And it was in the 80s. Not as jokey as, say, Cheers, but not overly serious either. And it was to do with like a courtroom that went on at night because they still needed to do cases, around the block the clock to get up. And so it was a cast of wacky characters and lawyers and court assistants and judges, and it was weird. Let's just say it was a weird show. I didn't watch much of it. I was still young, but I do remember it. It's an interesting show to bring back. I think I'm not quite sure what the idea of this, and I kind of get the feeling that maybe it will get a pilot and then probably will get passed on. But it'll be interesting. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll come back and be perfect.
John Larroquette's coming back. I mean,
yeah, exactly. We're getting to that point where we're talking about this in regards to Cobra Kai, but we're like, you bring back something, and if you had the right reverence for the original material, but you can find a new way to hook people in and make it different, then maybe it'll work. I'm not opposed to that. I think that's better than just remaking it.
Yeah.
So there is a chance if they go down that route, it could be interesting, I think. So, yeah.
We've talked previously of fourth Jackass film. Now, on the second day of filming this fourth Jackass film, Steve-O and Johnny Knoxville are already in hospital.
Jesus. What a surprise. They're freaking, 50-something?
Yeah, they're pushing it. Apparently they were injured by going on treadmills running at full speed with full band gear. Now, is this high school band gear? Or
I have no idea. I tried to find this out. I couldn't find out. I had the same exact question. I'm like, is it school, like brass band, or is it like guitar? I'm thinking brass band just makes it funnier.
I'm thinking brass band because like the only information I heard of is that they were both in hospital. I didn't know how.
Yeah, I had to look.
Was the cause?
I had to look this up, and it said that's all it said. Full band gear. It didn't say anymore. I haven't looked up again since I saw this. There might be more details. Steve-O's pretty prolific these days of putting video blogs up. I think.
Yeah, he's doing that quite a bit.
So he might have already done a story about it, how ridiculous it was. But I guess also they're trying not to ruin it because it'll probably
take it away. Yeah,
take away what's in the movie.
I'd say he probably will once sort of the odd trailer or the movie comes out.
Yeah. I mean, it might even appear in the trailers because usually when there's like someone actually managed to injure themselves pretty heinously, they would put it in the trailer. I'm thinking of like the golf cart, for example.
Yeah,
definitely put that in the trailer. Flipping the golf cart over. I get the feeling like we talked about this when I still like Jackass on its own little level, but I don't think I need another movie. Like,
no.
Am I going to enjoy watching these old men, actual old men now, like 20 years on, injuring themselves?
I kind of feel as though, what one is it? Is it the end of the second one where they're all old men?
The first one.
Is it the first one?
I think it's just the first one. They do the old men makeup. Yeah. I think it's the first one. I don't think it's the second one. I forgot. But there was jokes about them being
getting
old.
that way and doing this. I mean,
the first movie did come out 20 years ago.
Yeah.
To put that in perspective. 20 years ago.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Who knows? They might just keep going until they're old and white.
Oh, God, I hate to think. At this rate, they're definitely going to do it. They just keep throwing enough money at them every few years to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Let's just move on.
Yeah. We'll move on to our in memoriam section.
There's a few. We've got a few, unfortunately. It's a sad thing to say.
So there was Tommy Tiny Lister. He was well known for movies like Friday and No Holds Barred with Hulk Hogan. He was known as Zeus in the then WWF. So he had a short-lived wrestling career.
He always plays interesting. He always got some interesting. Is it him in Fifth Element as well? Am I thinking right? He plays that commander guy. He's such a weird character. It just ends up in these weird movies, and I'm just like, what the hell? I need to look this up.
I can't even remember that now.
Now I'm gonna. If I'm wrong, I'm gonna sound really, really racist. But he's such a unique character.
It wouldn't surprise me. Like, he does show up in the odd films.
That's what I mean. This is what I'm saying. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So I'll move on to other ones as well. There was also Jeremy Bulloch. He was the original Boba Fett. There was a dedication to the actor, has now been added to the second season of Mandalorian. As well as Boba Fett, he also played a random miscellaneous Cloud City person.
So I'm just going to go back. I was correct. He played President Lindbergh in the Fifth Element. So he's such a weird... He managed to get in such weird movies, and I was sure it was him. I was just like... It just popped in my head as soon as we were talking about things he'd been in, and I'm like, that's right, I'm pretty sure it was him. So yes, sorry, I mean to interrupt.
So no, it's all right. There was also Dawn Wells. She was 82. It was complications from COVID.
Yeah, you see, most people know from Gilligan's Island. Mm-hmm. But she was a prolific actress in her own right and also author as well. So that was a shock. I guess COVID again continuing to take people that we're getting to a certain age, and you start going, when will this end? And it's not going to be anytime soon, unfortunately.
Yep. There was Marion Ramsey from Police Academy. She was 73. She died of unknown causes other than noted recent illness. She's, of course, mostly well-known as Officer Hooks in the entire Police Academy franchise, but was a prolific actor in TV shows and sitcoms, as well as a Broadway actress and also singer. And you and I both got to witness this firsthand about a decade or so ago, when her and Michael Winslow performed together at the Wellington Armageddon.
Yeah, it was. They were so good together.
Oh yeah,
he pretended to play instruments, and
she sang.
It was so good. It was such a
they had
shame.
such good chemistry. Like I almost thought to myself back then, I was like, are they together? Are they not together? Like, they just had really good chemistry. Like they've been doing it for years.
I think it was just because they'd worked together so much.
And they'd probably do similar things in the US and other countries as
shows
well.
and cons and stuff. Yeah, it was a shame. I was really shocked to hear that. You didn't even hear
I heard it in the most unconventional way.
How did you hear about it? Because I'd seen it online, and then a friend of ours mentioned it, and you somehow missed it. They'd said,
yeah,
and you
I'd
found
woken up
out
late, because you guys go on fucking diatribes, and I missed.
We hadn't that
surprised.
time though. This is the thing that we hadn't. He just posted.
I'd
like
somehow
3 or 4
missed
things.
it, but I had seen it. I was scrolling through Facebook, and I saw Drew Struzan, most well-known movie artist, had posted a drawing he'd done for Police Academy 3, which ironically was on a few days after I'd seen
Yeah,
this.
we were just saw it on TV together.
And then the comment at the bottom, like, because Facebook has like those preview comments, one of them said, "Rip Officer Hooks," and I was like, "What?" So I'd gone to IMDb and looked it up, and sure enough, like, she died like the day before, and I went, "The fuck did I miss this?"
Yeah.
So, and then of course, you'd corrected me, and Skip had told us that. I went, "Oh."
I was just like, I didn't correct you. I just said to him, because he said,
Yeah, he
did I
second-guessed himself,
he's like, did I post it, or was I supposed to post it? And I was like, no, you did, and showed him the screen grab of him doing it. So yeah, I wasn't trying to correct you. I was just more like I had just seen it, and then he said that through like literally 5 minutes or so after I'd just seen it. So he saw it around the same time I did. But yeah, no, it's such a shame. I'll move on. Prolific, if highly underrated UK director Michael Apted was 79. This is crazy, because I had just been reading about him to do something else entirely, and then this happened. Just to explain why I think he's, and I'm not the one saying, there's a lot of people saying this. Apted had a widely diverse career that included documentary, drama, TV and film. Not many directors can boast a range of genre-spanning work that included biopics about Loretta and Diane Fossey, UK soap operas, including Coronation Street, World War II dramas, Cold War thrillers, comedies starring John Belushi and Richard Pryor, a James Bond film, a C.S. Lewis adaptation, and episodes of the HBO modern drama series Masters of Sex, among many others. Apted also directed all but one of the installments in the groundbreaking Up documentary series, including the first one, 7 Up, in 1964, and most recently 63 Up in 2019. If you don't know what those are, literally they follow kids. Originally, the 7 Up was following a bunch of 7-year-olds, and then every 7 years they would meet with them again and see where their lives are taking them. Not every kid stuck with the series, and sometimes they would disappear for sometimes and come back. But yeah, he directed every single one of them except for one.
Oh, wow.
And he was quoted as saying, hopefully I'll still be around to direct, what was the one it was going to be? Something like 80-something when I'm 99. Wow. So, because he wasn't much older than, in some respects, he was in his early 20s, I think, when he first started doing them. So, unfortunately, it will not be the case.
In a way, he's grown up with these kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Adults.
But I cannot name many directors ever that have directed that sort of diverse material. Like, that is an insane amount of different work. Most people get into a certain genre and they get stuck with it. They do horror and they do horror, they do action. But to be able to go between soap operas and biopics, drama series and a James Bond movie, like, not many people can do that. So it was quite a shock to see that. I'm going to finish with a really weird one, and did you see this as well?
I did see this, but I'm just reading some of the details ahead here, but I didn't read some of the details, but go ahead. I'm
going to read this. It's pretty crazy. So this is a weird one. It was reported of the passing of Tanya Roberts at 65. Now, she was most well known as Stacey Sutton in A View to a Kill, the James Bond movie, and as Donna's mum Midge in that 70s show. Now, she collapsed on Christmas Eve after returning from walking her dogs, and never recovered and died on January 3rd in hospital. Or rather, it seems she didn't. As it turned out, a rep misinterpreted information provided by her husband, who thought she'd died when he visited her, and doctors had already told him that she didn't have much time left. However, it turned out she then lived for just another day and sadly died on the evening of the 4th. The cause of death was a seemingly undetected urinary tract infection that spread to her kidneys, liver, and gallbladder with toxification of her blood. So, unfortunate infection that was not picked up and had spread too far. It's such a weird story, and like the media kind of hounded the husband and the rep for like misinterpreting things, but it seems like a weird mixture of circumstances. So when he saw her on the 3rd, he kind of said goodbye and she kind of reacted, and then it seemed like she passed away while he was there.
Yeah.
And the doctors had already previously told her that she's not going to live. He just assumed that she had actually died and left the hospital because he was upset. And so then he had to give information to friends and family and
let them know.
And let them know, and then they put it this public release. And then he got a call the next day saying she was still alive, but then she died later that day. It's a crazy story. Like, to anyone, regardless of a celebrity connection to this, like, could you imagine going through that? Like, that's a roller coaster of things.
Yeah, like, especially, well, sort of assuming that your other had died, and then you go off and make all the phone calls, and then you get called by a hospital next day, go, well, actually, they're still alive. And then you find out, like, literally that same day that, oh no, now they've died. That's...
Because I don't think it was...
Like, you're already bad enough as it is, and then you come down, and then you're like, oh, okay, and then you back up. And
imagine
you're like,
they're still alive, so you start ringing everyone and say, actually, no, they're not dead. I found out at the hospital they actually haven't died, and then later on they have died, and you've got to ring everyone up and go, oh, yeah, sorry, actually, they have. It's like...
That's not only screwing with one person, like the husband, but the family as well.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I assume the husband went back into the hospital, but that was not noted. But you would assume so because it was like early in the morning and she didn't die until the evening. But who knows? I mean, it sounds pretty weird, and people were joking that it seemed like a 2020 story, a 2021 story, and then everyone was like, well, actually, she collapsed on Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, 2020, so it's because of 2020. It was funny just saying that, but I mean, it's not with the intent of what it actually is about, but obviously with all the other stuff that's been going on, and we're already into this year, people are like, oh my god, can we just end this already? This year's supposed to be a clean slate.
Yeah.
Can we not have these weird stories? I saw some people went, before she was announced she actually died, that people were like, oh, maybe this is the reverse of last year, that celebrities get announced as dying, but then they actually aren't dead. I was like...
That doesn't make it any better.
It doesn't make it any better. Can we just not announce that they're dead at all? That would be much better, thank you.
Yeah. Or at least wait a week to authenticate it or something, you know?
Like yeah, exactly. We should move on from this weird story and move on to some trailers. We've only got a few to talk about. I think we'll just go from the bottom up, actually, this time.
Yeah, all right.
We'll start with the Coming to America trailer. I think we talked about in the last proper episode that it got delayed till later into this year. So they released a trailer. It doesn't really show a lot of the story. It's more some joke slinging and just characters.
It looks to be more about that Eddie Murphy's character has a illegitimate son in America, so that's the reason they have to go back.
There's a whole... There seems to be a lot more to the... I can't remember, what's this nation called? It's an African nation, obviously. I can't remember what it's called. It's gone blank. But there's obviously more to that we saw than we had in the original movie. Obviously, both him and Arsenio playing different characters. Multiple characters again, which is...
which is more of a step up from the last one, I think, where they played like 2 characters each or something.
2 or 3 each, yeah.
Yeah, now this time it's like 4 or 5.
I think you lose count.
Yeah.
Easily 4 or 5,
well,
maybe
at
even
this point,
6.
I think Eddie Murphy's just used to not playing himself.
I don't know. It looks alright, but I'll be interested to see the outcome. It doesn't, as I said, doesn't really show a lot of the story other than that very basic beat about why they're going back to America. So, interesting cast lineup. They pulled in a whole bunch of really well-known people to help out. So it looks pretty good.
Still got the star power going for it.
Exactly. There's a trailer for The Little Things, which is the first of the movies being released this year through the HBO Max Warner Brothers thing. Interesting premise, interesting cast. So
Denzel Washington.
No, I was about to go with the Jared Leto thing that you didn't bring up. But yes, Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto, who didn't kind of look like him, but then didn't look like him, and had me questioning.
Yeah, there's certain parts where if you watch the trailer, you go, "Is it Jared Leto?" And then you go, "Oh no, it's not." And then you see him again, you go,
Oh wait,
maybe it is.
And then you eventually...
so you second guess yourself until his name comes up and you go, oh, it is Jared Leto.
It seems like an interesting thing where there's like Washington plays a cop, but there's he's not a clean cop himself.
Yeah,
and
he seems like he's like semi-retired or something.
Semi-retired or a small town, and then Malik's playing like an agent for the FBI and
or something like
that. And there's murder cases, and then he's trying to convince him to help out on the case, and then there's something else going. Very interesting trailer. I couldn't really decipher a lot, which I kind of like. I kind of like that I can't go in and guess what's happening.
Yeah, that's kind of the movie. Like we've talked about this previously, is that if it gets you intrigued enough without spoiling the movie, it's going to make you want to go see it.
Yeah.
And that's what this does.
Yeah. My problem is there'll probably be another trailer closer to its release. I mean, it's very soon. It comes out pretty soon, but there could be another trailer and it would just ruin too much. So I'm hoping I don't have to see another trailer. I can just see the movie.
Yeah.
Another trailer. The last of the three trailers we're going to talk about is Nobody. It's like John Wick Family Man.
Yeah.
That's the best way to describe
basically,
it.
yeah.
Can I call it that? John Wick Family Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is produced
by the producers
and people involved with John Wick. Yeah, interesting.
It stars Bob Odenkirk from Breaking Bad and Never Called Saul. Is pretty much a nobody, really.
Yeah, well, the idea is that he worked as an
accountant, I think, or something, or a IRS.
No, it's not IRS. He worked for a secret service, but they called him. What did they call him? He just said it in the trailer. I've already forgotten. But if he turns up, he cleans house basically. Yeah. He kills everyone. And he has retired to have a family, and it's been, I think, like a decade or so since he retired. But he obviously still wanted to be doing his work underneath, and then his house gets robbed, and it gives him the rush to be involved when he doesn't do anything when he could have.
Yeah.
And then he goes out and starts beating the crap out of criminals and gets people's attention. They're looking for him, and that sounds very John Wick-esque.
Yeah. Sort of going out for revenge sort of thing.
I saw an interview with him saying he trained quite a bit for the role to be able to do a lot of the physicality. He's definitely got that same thing going on that both Keanu Reeves and Charlize Theron went through, where they're involved in the choreography, they're involved in the action, and like but what's great about it is he doesn't seem like the type of person to be in that type of movie.
No,
and yet as soon as you see it, you go, wow, it works. Like he's doing the job.
One note that I held off from saying when we watched the trailer just before is that I thought about it this time, is that he's got the voice for that sort of movie, but he doesn't have the look for it, which I think works.
I think it's because
he's supposed to be a nobody, and he looks like Joe Average.
Yeah, he's a very unassuming guy, and then he has this set of skills that he uses, not to parlay a
certain set of skills
into it, but you know what I mean. Like he seems so unassuming that he could be exactly a nobody, and I think in that way the context of it and the casting works brilliantly. And I love how like the family are completely clueless to it, and he's like sending them into a basement. Don't call the police.
Panic room.
Panic. There's like there's a basement panic room, and it's like man, this was pretty crazy. So I'm looking forward. It comes out in February. I'll definitely go check it out. I think I definitely enjoy it.
I'd definitely be keen for it as well.
We mentioned this in the end of year episode, and it kind of happened between recording that the third season of Cobra Kai, the release was supposed to be the 8th of January, I think it was, and it got bumped up to the 1st, which meant I had to wait because you needed to see both the second and third Karate Kid films, and you were still away on holiday until the 2nd.
Yeah, until I got back.
Until you got back, so I had to wait. So we had to make you sit down and watch both Karate Kid sequels, one each night for 2 nights, I think it was, and then we sat down and watched season 3
over like 3 nights, I think. So we watched 2 and then all 6, the last 6.
Yeah, is that how that works?
Yeah, because I think Karate Kid we watched one night, skipped the next night, and then watched the third the next night after.
Yeah,
and then we watched Cobra Kai, and it was 2 one night, 2 another night, and then 6 one night. So
all right,
we kind of binged that quickly.
We did. Okay, so what I'm going to do, because we have to talk about those, I'm going to ask you first about your comments about Karate Kid Part 2 and 3, because I don't need to talk about this because I've seen them plenty of times. You've never seen them. And then we'll both talk about Cobra Kai Season 3. Says we've seen the whole thing. And so your movie reviews can be spoilerific because it's not going to matter, and we'll
like
try
a 30-year-old film.
Exactly, 30-plus-year-old movie each. And then the Cobra Kai will try and keep it as spoiler-free as we can. So, all right, so Part 2 Karate Kid, before you start, what were you expecting of a sequel to the first movie?
I think, if anything, it was more... It's probably going to touch more on what happens in Karate Kid 3, but I was more expecting that it's going to be another several months leading up to another state tournament or valley tournament.
Valley.
I thought it was going to be like another valley tournament in the second one, which wasn't the case because that kind of happens in the third one, which I'll touch on. But yeah, I don't really know. I didn't really have any expectations of where it was going to go. I think I roughly knew that it went to Japan because I think you'd told me previously.
Well, that was why we had to watch it beforehand.
As well as sort of rough, like the small amounts of what I knew beforehand.
You knew that one of them went to Japan, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't know too much about it, but I didn't really have much of an expectation going into it. I just enjoyed it for what it was.
Okay, so what did you find when you did enjoy it? Like, did you... Well, I'm already putting words in your mouth, but did you enjoy it, like, as a sequel? What do you think?
I think the fact that it touched more on Mr. Miyagi and his backstory, that was a nice touch because it sort of gave him more of a character as opposed to this groundsman, maintenance man who works at the hotel. You know, so it sort of gives more of a backstory to him and where his family sort of comes from, which, you know, you couldn't really get into that first movie because it was more about Daniel and where he came from and being bullied and all that.
There's little hints of it to do with his direct family because he lost a wife and child and all that sort of stuff in the first that we found out in the first movie, and that's all we found out.
Yeah,
and we knew he was from Japan. That was the only other thing.
That was it. Yeah, but yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I liked how that there was the sort of the showdown that was going to be between Miyagi and his brother. Was it his brother or his cousin?
It was his friend.
His friend. That's it. Sato.
Sato.
Yeah. So I kind of thought there'd be some sort of, you know, battle there, and they'd like choose their champion or something, which kind of happened, but kind of didn't at the same time. Where Daniel fought off against, I'm gonna forget his name now.
Chosen.
Thank you. Yeah. So they sort of fought,
but inadvertently it didn't happen because it was a tournament or anything.
Yeah, it was just a random.
Chosen decided to attack because for his honor, basically. Yeah. Which the whole point is to mirror the situation that happened between Sato and Miyagi over about their personal integrity, essentially, their honor. Again, I think this is the genius thing that I've seen the Karate Kid movies a lot of times, and I think it's not until I reconceptualize them after watching Cobra Kai that I start realizing there's this whole concept of balance and yin yang going on in the scripts, especially for the first two, maybe not so much the third, and definitely not the fourth. But, you know, like, that I hadn't really quite noticed. And it's one of those things when I sat down with you and watched that second one, I go, you know what? Karate Kid Part 2 is one of those movies that's probably quite underrated, and it's probably one of those movies that should be put in those lists of sequels that are as good as the original film. Yeah. It's weird. I never thought about it in those terms, but when rewatching it, I'm like, this is a really solid sequel. If this had been like the first movie, and it turned out that he was just like looking after this old man for some reason and went with him to Japan, it would still be a good movie of its own accord. So I think on that hand it's quite interesting. So okay, so you've seen the second one and you enjoyed it, and then what did you think the third one was going to be? Like, by now you were like, the tournament, this is where you thought it was going to go?
Yeah, I kind of thought that there wasn't really a tournament in this, and now that they've sort of come back to America, there might be a tournament in this one, but I think looking at it, I didn't enjoy it as much as the first two, and I just can't put my finger on why. I don't know whether it was because the sort of Valley tournament wasn't really forced into there as a plot point, but it kind of was because they'd changed the rules about it of how the previous winner didn't have to battle throughout the whole tournament. He just had to go to the final. Yeah.
They're looking for an excuse to put him in straight away, yeah.
And I don't know, it's just... I didn't enjoy it as much as the first two.
Yeah, it's weird. I can't put my finger on it either. It's just not as good. It's not a horrible film, and it aesthetically looks the same. Like, it looks part of the trilogy.
Yeah, for sure.
But it just doesn't sit very well. The story's not as compelling. It's not as interesting. There's nothing wrong with the characters, but like, I mean, your main villain chews scenery like nothing else.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel out of place in this world. Like, he feels like a character that could definitely exist. So I can't fault that either. But it's just, something you can't quite put your finger on that is not quite right. I think one of the things I did work out was like, I remember because I had to go look it up, was like why the love interest, who, I've never noticed this before because obviously I didn't know who she was related to, but I'm like sitting there going, she looks like Blake Lively, and then it turns out she's her half sister, and I was like, okay, but it turns out then when I looked that up, it turns out, oh well, she was actually 16 years old at the time. And Ralph Macchio was like 27 or whatever. And I was like,
so that's why it's just friends
and not a love interest. And I was like, okay, so well, that makes sense. And I think that doesn't help the movie. I think they could have just cast someone a little bit older and made an actual love interest going on, because that would be a consistent narrative for the 3 films. Miyagi does some really weird things in the movie. Like, they never really justify why he won't let Daniel go into the competition.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of get it on a moral level. He's like what he said during the second movie, retire. He doesn't need to come back.
Yeah.
But there isn't any reason why he acts like that. And then when Daniel goes off the rails, which is a little bit ham-fisted too, I think, it doesn't feel... he just turns up. And you realised it at the time, that all of a sudden that he's going to follow him because he's going back to see Terry and he doesn't think he trusts him, and he just turns up and saves the day. It feels a little unearned.
Yeah.
But the whole situation feels unearned, I think. Like, why would he act like this or whatever? So, I don't know.
Yeah, it is a bit odd. I mean, there isn't justifiable reasons as to why certain characters do certain things, and it's just like I don't want to say predictable, but I mean, I did predict that Miyagi would follow Daniel.
Yeah, of course,
that's the case. But yeah, it wasn't a good threequel to me.
Are you?
If I'm coining a phrase.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. There's 2 questions to this. Firstly, does it make you want to see the next Karate Kid? This is just a yes or no answer. Ignoring the fact you've seen the trailer for it, which kind of ruined that idea about. I've probably given you ideas about this one.
See, no,
I made him, for context. I made him watch the trailer.
I want to say yes.
You just want to see. You kind of want to see what
just
happens.
for the sake of saying that
You've
I've seen it.
all. Yeah, okay.
Then I've seen all 5.
Technically, I guess.
Yeah.
I want to know what you think overall of the trilogy that you saw as a trilogy, like as a trilogy of films. When you look at trilogies of other movies, how do you see the Karate Kid
as a duo?
As a duo with a weak third act.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, just yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I just wasn't big on 3.
No, I don't think I was either. Yeah. Okay. All right. So this brings us in the context of then Cobra Kai. So now you've seen 2 seasons. And thinking back, you've probably got a few more references over those 2 seasons thinking back about it. And we watched a video later that after you'd seen the movie just to see some of the things that maybe you'd missed, and there were some kind of cool little nods here and there, and some really overt ones. And so we come into this 3rd season, and I'm trying not to go into spoilers, and now I'm starting to think about what I think about this as well. But like, what did you expect going into the 3rd season based off what had happened in the last 2? I'm going to continue this framing that we've done.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, I think we obviously knew. I don't know. Should we spoil the end of the second season?
I'm going to say. Yeah, we'll say this. If you haven't seen any of the seasons, then you can stop listening for the next little while. We're going to come back and talk about Wonder Woman 1984 after this. But if you don't mind or have seen the first 2 seasons, you can listen ahead.
Yeah. So I think going into it, we knew Miguel was in hospital with a potential paralysis or back injury
and
or
a
something.
coma.
Yeah, coma. So there obviously had to be some sort of resolve there. We knew Johnny's son was on the run for doing that, so there had to be a resolve there. And it looked like both Daniel and Johnny's worlds were in a shambles, but somehow Kreese was on top of the world. So there had to be some sort of resolve there, and the way it turned out, I think, is probably a good resolve overall of how the events of the season happened.
Did it seem...
spoiling it too much.
Did it seem predictable, or did it go in ways you didn't expect? Because I have a particular view on this, but I will see what you think first.
I think a couple of things were predictable, and I mean, I called them out as well of certain things happening, because to me that kind of made sense.
Yeah.
But...
not in a bad way. Predictable, not in a bad way.
Yeah. I think... there was a couple of things that surprised me as well, which may have been like, oh, okay, that didn't go how I thought it might.
Or that something happened that you didn't expect at all.
Yeah. But
I think what I've realized is the third season, I enjoyed it just as much as I have the other two seasons, but I feel like when the show goes down its very soapy tropes, I find myself engaging with it less. So I find when it heights up the predictability, I find that I lose interest a bit more.
Okay.
So, for example, this is a good example, and it's not a spoiler because I'm going to explain it without using character names, but when two characters are talking and a third character turns up that's like in a weird dynamic between those two, and it turns out so when that happens, I predict it's going to happen, and then when it happens, I go, oh, of course, because you're just setting up conflict. It doesn't feel earned, and I think that was one of the things I really liked, especially the first season, is that when these sorts of things happen, they felt like they were earned. They felt like the situation had no other resolve, but it didn't felt like it didn't. You weren't just having someone turn up out of the blue for no reason, you know. And I feel like the third season really starts to go down that route of too often does the person that is going to cause conflict just turns up at the exact wrong/right moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's when I start going, oh God, don't go down this trope, because I'm going to start getting less and less interested. And when it's going to happen every other episode, I'm going to be like, fuck. Not again.
Here's a question then. Would you say that Cobra Kai of season 3 to you is very similar to Karate Kid 3? Is that it's within the same universe, but it's just there? Or would you say there's enough of a difference?
No, I wouldn't.
To still keep it within the world?
Yeah, I wouldn't. Hands down, I would rather watch that third season again than Karate Kid Part 3.
Okay.
Like, there's no question. There's definitely enough good moments in it. I'm not trying to spoil it, but some returning character moments are really good.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. The sense of humour is definitely on point. I don't think that's missed a beat. It feels exactly in consistency. The characters are still great. I love the various play of relationships. I think that's the thing that keeps me anchored to this, is that the characters between themselves, the way they interact and banter or situations that happen, those are the bits that keep me interested. And I almost want to say in some ways, like, as predictable as the last episode, the situation in the last episode, again, not spoiling anything, was because of the situation at the end of the last season. The way it was handled and the way it was different was enough to make it work. It didn't feel like a repeat. It felt like, again, going back to this whole earn thing, it felt like a consequence. Situationally, things were going to come to a point, and that's what was going to happen. It may not have happened there. It could have happened somewhere else. Yeah. But I still would have believed it would have happened, and it made sense for it. And for that way, it didn't feel as soapy as perhaps maybe some of the other moments. I mean, I'm setting a really high bar here. When I make it sound like I'm complaining about this third season, it's literally because I just love those first two seasons, especially the first one so much, that if they're like, just to put them on a non-actual but an arbitrary scale, if they're like a 10, we're talking like season 3 is like a 9. We're saying my nitpicks are nothing, and I'm just quabbling because I just don't want it to be a sign of degradation. You know, shows tend to peak early, they tend to grow and then maybe peak and then drop off, right? So if the show comes out the gates to me so high on the level that it starts immediately dropping, I'm like, well, this is not good. I want it to get better. I want to be more invested. You want it
to go up, and then as it sort of goes on, to slowly come down and find that resolve.
And I don't want the show to. If it goes to 5 seasons, cool. I don't want it to be going past 6. If it gets to 6, I think that you've done. Don't go any further. I think if they find more reasons to bring characters back in again, characters that have been missing for a particular reason, because I can find a story to bring them back for reasons, I'm all happy with that. And I think it makes sense. I still think I didn't walk away from that season going, yeah, I didn't like it. I loved it, but I just feel like I'm seeing warning signs if they keep going down these tropes. I'm like, stop it, guys. Like, you're better than this. You've already done 2 seasons without really pushing into these hard. You can do it. So yeah, that's me just being niggling. But yeah, I enjoy it. What about yourself? I
really enjoyed it as well.
I mean you've implied this, but
there was so many like other nods to like the movies as well. Like one of the characters wearing a skeleton hoodie. Yeah, it's similar to the first season.
Yeah, there's the Miguel wearing the
Miguel wore one like Johnny did.
Where he had the Halloween outfit, exactly. But this was alluded.
There's like various other sort of small Easter eggs as well.
On a character development, I can say this without spoiling it because of where we're established, where Kreese was at the end of the second season. it becomes very important about his character, and it gives a lot more backstory with flashbacks to him more than almost anyone throughout the entire season. We learn more about.
I think it's mostly him. Yeah,
it's like him. We've got the Japanese thing, which we talked about, which we can also mention without spoiling because it's in the trailers. That those two bits are probably the most important. You learn a bit more about Miyagi family history and Miyagi and Okinawa, and then you learn a lot about Kreese and how he kind of became who he is. But it doesn't. I think there was a scene. It was almost calling itself out. I want to say. No, you tell me if this is the case. If you thought this is the case, there's a scene when Miguel's in hospital and he gets visited, and there's this whole thing about just having a sob story doesn't mean that you can be a dick.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's the root cause of explaining Kreese's background. It's like, yeah, he had the stuff happen to him, and there's this backstory, and we're learning about his military career. But he's still a dick. Yeah. Like, at the end of the day, it doesn't justify how he acts. It just gives you more understanding of why he acts that way, but it doesn't justify it. And I kind of wanted to... At the time when I realized this, I was like, damn it, show, for fucking lampshading that. But to be honest, when I think about it more, it's like, actually, most shows wouldn't go down that route. They would just go, okay, we're actually saying this is the sob story. And you decide, but this show's already called out the fact that just because this happened to him and the stuff he went through doesn't justify him the way he's acted in any of the Karate Kid movies and any of Cobra Kai. He is just a ruthless asshole. Yeah, and so I kind of enjoyed that. I think that was all right. So yeah, any final words you want to say? No,
I think we've pretty much summed it up.
Yeah. Looking forward to the next season.
Yeah. Whenever that is it next year, 2022?
I think the plan is to start shooting in the coming months. So probably like all these Star Wars things in March or something. Probably in the next couple of months. I think they've got most of the scripts written, I think is what I read, and I know the demand's high, so we'll us two, along with probably millions of other people, we're looking forward to the
waiting for it.
Continuing adventures of the Cobra Kais. One last review before we finish up, and we kind of talked a little bit about this in the end of year thing, and I kind of want to expand on it a bit more and just get some more overview. And you also can potentially bring someone else into the fold who can also bring their opinion of it, so this will be a good way to finish out the episode. Wonder Woman 1984. Now, in the end of year episode, we both talked about it. Now, in your perspective, it was a okay movie, but not great, not bad, just...
It was a solid sequel, but not a solid sequel, if that makes sense. Yeah, okay. Like it was a sufficient sequel.
I think on a lot of levels the reason why people have been very disappointed is because of the fact that the first one was considered such a great movie.
Yeah.
I think that's probably part of the reason why it's not a solid sequel. But I still just continue to... The whole thing continues to niggle away at me. I think it's worth saying at this point, I'm not going to be holding back on spoilers for this. So if anyone doesn't want to hear me or you talking about the spoilers for this, they should probably stop listening now. And thank you for joining us for this episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Because this is the last one we're going to talk about. But, it's weird. It just didn't gel with me. Like, the whole movie, I'm feeling unsettled. I'm just constantly questioning, why this? Why this? Why this? Why would you do this? Why wouldn't you do that? Why does the CG look like this? Why did that character make that decision? It took me out of the movie. I was like constantly thinking, there's a really great idea here, and there is a movie here, but it's like done entirely backwards. Like, why is this character doing this? Why is the reaction? Why is this cliche? Why am I sitting here making questions for a movie? Yeah. Like, that's the other part of it. Did you have those moments? I feel like some of the things you said to me last episode kind of led me down that path. Like, you were looking at this movie going, there's something not right here.
Yeah, well, I mean, we touched on that in the end of year of, like, how the emergence of the cheetah was very much like Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman in Batman Returns. And the way that sort of happened... It's kind of explained by this. How do I get around this?
You can talk about it. I said I was going to spoil it, so you can just say.
Okay, around this like mystical rock.
Yeah, it's a monkey's paw basically, but it's a stone. It's what's it called? It's something stone.
Yeah, something that apparently if you touch it, it can grant a wish or.
You only get one wish, except for unless you wish to be again spoilers. Wish to be the stone, then you can grant everyone's wishes and take part of it for yourself.
Yeah. And I kind of feel as though, is that, again, like sort of the way that the Cheetah was created, I kind of thought that it's your normal sort of stereotypical superhero trope where hero does, something amazing, like saves, like a plane from crashing or something, but in the process kills like a villain's parent or something. I kind of felt as though that this one villain, played by Pedro Pascal, was potentially going to do something to screw over Kristen Wiig, and then that would cause her to become the villain, and then, or something, and then there'd be like some sort of villain on villain sort of battle, and then it doesn't work that way. It's just the villains team up against Wonder Woman, and it's just
to me it's an overly convoluted film that doesn't justify why it's set in 1984. Has very, very diversely different villains. One, as I think I pointed out the Catwoman thing to you, and you were like, I knew there was something.
Yeah,
I knew there was something that was bugging me about that.
Yeah.
Which I thought was hilarious. But like I said, I think Pedro Pascal ends up being like the main character in that movie, because Wonder Woman, while being the titular character, doesn't really have a hell of an arc, really, when you think about it.
No.
The lesson that she learns is the lesson that she tries to explain through the flashback you see at the start of the movie. Kind of. And the only other thing she ends up doing is letting go of her grief, essentially, for her love for
Steve Trevor.
Steve Trevor, thank you. And which is good. This is a good learning thing, trust me. And there's definitely been movies with less curve for a character. But when you look at what Pedro Pascal, as I said, he's the only actor who seems to know what movies is. He's chewing scenery when he needs to, but then he brings the emotional impact when he needs to, and his character has the biggest arc of everyone. We don't even know what the result with Kristen Wiig's Cheetah character is at the end. You see her kind of looking up at the end. Do we see her again? I don't even think we do.
She becomes human, like on the cliffside.
Yeah, and then
that's about it.
That's it. I'm like, okay, so what happened to her? Did she learn her lesson? Like, is she not going to be a dick anymore to people because that's what she used to be like? Well,
she was just sort of stood on until she touched the stone herself and wished to be like Diana.
Yeah, and then
which she didn't realize what that actually meant.
Yeah, which is that's kind of cool. I kind of like that.
That's a nice little nod there. How that happened.
But as I said, the CG was really floaty. Like I remember the bits in the mall. The lightning thing was terrible. I loved the invisible jet sequence. I thought that was really cool. That was like the only bit of the movie to me that felt like the first movie.
Yeah.
Like kind of had that same little magic wonder. The action stuff was really good, but there's like 4 or 5 action sequences.
Yeah, there wasn't much to it.
The road chase was pretty cool, but as someone pointed out to me, at the end of the day, we went back into that old beat cliche of the fact that like, oh, she lost her powers, man must save her. She still doesn't save herself so much as like a guy kind of steps in to kind of save her. And I was kind of like, I can see why people would have problems with that. And that was coming from a woman who said that, by the way, not just coming from my opinion. So, I can see why that was the case. I mean, I can see, as I said, I can see a really good movie in there. It's not it. It zigs when it should zag, and it should zags when it zigs, kind of like I was talking about with last episode with Mulan. It kind of just these things that you might expect, but then doesn't, and then the things that you don't expect, it kind of does, but doesn't do them very well, mostly. There's good stuff in the movie, but it's few and far between. And I think at the end of the day, I kind of agree with you. It's an okay movie. It's a good movie, but it wasn't a great movie.
Yeah, it's a passable sequel.
It's a passable sequel. Hopeful. As I said earlier on in the episode, Warner Brothers is happy with the outcome of the financials and streaming, so they've already fast-tracked a third one, and they've always been happy to make another one, so we'll see more, and obviously we'll see some more of Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, Zack Snyder's Justice League 4-hour miniseries epic. Yeah.
Hallelujah.
So indeed, we'll move forward. I think it's about time we bring in your extra guest that you went and saw Wonder Woman with, and we see what they have to say.
Yep. So my girlfriend and I, Anne, we went and saw Wonder Woman at the Event Cinemas in Newmarket, Daybed. I'd recommend it, but it's a bit pricey. So you've heard my review, so now we'll hand over to Anne for her review.
And
we'll see what she thought of it.
Can I ask you one question, Anne, before this? Did you get cold at the Daybed? I've heard this from other people, so I asked Ryan. I did actually ask Ryan, did you get cold? And he's like, yeah, could have definitely done with a blanket.
The Daybed?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of cold.
Yeah.
I literally leaned over to Ryan and I was like, I should have brought my blanket. Yeah.
You wouldn't be the first.
Trying to cuddle for warmth.
Did it work? Probably not.
Shush. Don't reveal my tricks. Also, what? You've already reviewed it? Oh, I'm sad now. No.
He has already talked about it, yeah.
Oh.
Let's
Well,
get
I don't
your
want to
opinion.
repeat what he said.
No, you get to say your own thing. That's the whole point.
It's your own review, so
Yeah.
it could vary from what ours was.
Okay.
I guess I'll ask the questions to Ryan, and then we'll pick up your frame. So, how much did you enjoy the first Wonder Woman film, and what were you expecting for the new one?
This is an unpopular opinion, but
Okay.
I didn't like it.
The original movie?
The original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And wow, okay. And so, what were you expecting going into the second one? Why did you go to see the second one, and if you didn't like the first one? That's an interesting question of itself.
I didn't, and then Ryan was like, "Want to go see a movie?" And I was like, "All right." And that was it.
Okay, cool.
Like,
all right, and then he was like, Wonder Woman's on, and you're like, yeah, cool, we'll just go see that. I didn't like the first one, but whatever.
Yeah.
We go see a movie. Cool. All
because
right.
it was like the only major blockbuster. For
Yeah, of
obvious
course.
Reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Yeah.
so then, what did you think when you saw it? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I was actually pleasantly surprised. In my opinion, it was better than the first one. So, just to explain why I didn't like the first one, I just found it basic. That's literally it. I just found it so basic, and I know it's like world changing because we don't have many female superhero movies, which is still a thing that needs to be fixed, which I do appreciate, but I just everything about it was so basic.
It was just a very, very straightforward movie.
I was just like, what? Like, I was just questioning where the excitement was the whole time. And what didn't make it better was the battle at the end. I found it so lackluster. And I think this is a popular opinion. I found it so lackluster.
It's interesting you say that because it's actually just
Yeah.
been recently that Patty Jenkins, the director, has come out actually saying, it was studio mandated. She had a different idea of what she wanted to do, but they went, you have to have a big battle. That's where movies go to, you know. So it's not too much of a surprise that you feel that, and it's definitely a commonly commented thing.
Yeah.
Ryan's having a bit of a giggle because I think Ryan and I both agreed that we both enjoyed the first movie more than the second. But this is good. I like this. I like that someone else has got a different opinion on this, because otherwise we just sit here and just go, oh yeah, well they like this and they didn't like that.
Yeah.
For me, I found that it was interesting that I didn't understand why it was set in 1984. It didn't really make a hell of a lot of difference to the overall plot. I thought Pedro Pascal was amazing. I think he knew the movie he was in.
That was, you know this, but that's like my number one enjoyment of the movie.
Yeah.
His acting.
Yeah. I think for a title character, Wonder Woman is not really that important, which is a bit weird. I think
when you mentioned that to me, I realized that that's true.
Yeah. And the other thing I said to Ryan, which is I feel like the whole cheetah thing with Kristen Wiig, she's basically like Catwoman in Batman Returns, which was slightly off-putting. But I said to Ryan, the thing for me is that I constantly went through the movie going, there's a really good idea for a movie here, but I'm constantly going, why did you make this choice? Why is this happening? Why?
Right.
And it started taking me out of the movie.
Yeah.
But I think conversely for you, because it did so many different things, is very much different than the first Wonder Woman, and you like that. It's a lot of different surprises and something it's not basic. It's not that type of movie you were expecting, I guess. Does that make sense?
I mean, I don't know why. I think honestly the reason I liked it was just because of Pedro Pascal. I think, and I'm not saying, I mean, I do like Mandalorian, but I'm not saying it's just because are you going to say something, babe? He's just like leaning over the mic being like, oh.
I was going to, but I won't.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he just did such a great performance, and I just love the motivations behind him as a villain that I think those motivations are very relevant to today's world with how shit it is at the moment as well. And also the situation that he put the world in like that as well. I think it's just a mixture of that and his amazing acting that just really captured me. Like, if I look back, I think honestly Wonder Woman did fuck all for me. Censorship, haha. The one thing that I do like about Wonder Woman was actually the mall fighting scene. Like, I really enjoyed that. And that was it.
Yeah, it's
like
cool.
Kristen Wiig did a good job, obviously, but like you said, Like, she was very much sidetracked.
I guess the only other thing I've got to ask before Ryan leans in to say what he's got to say, because I'm not saying he's going to, he's thinking, he's still getting it in his head. What did you think of the whole bringing back Steve kind of thing? Did that seem like it needed to happen? Was it?
No.
Okay, and then the following question to that, and this is the one thing I said to Ryan, which was mentioned, and I had to preface it because I was like, this is what I got told by someone at my work, female, not male, said I really didn't I like the action scenes, loved the movie, but I didn't like the bit with the car thing when Steve had to save her from being injured, because you know how she got injured and she saved that kid, she did that role on the ground.
Right.
Yeah. And they're like, it's another scene where a guy saves the strong woman who's the title character out of the movie. And they were like, it took me out of the movie. They're like, that's it. I didn't like it anymore after that happened. Did you think this at all? This was
no, I mean, I can see why she would say that, but I think that was the only point where he had to do it because she was obviously losing her powers. So I saw the relevance in that. And I think what Patty Jenkins is doing with Steve is fine to me anyway. Because, like, he's clearly, like, what a badass female character would be in a guy movie.
Yeah, the other way around.
Yeah, just the other way around. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing to the world. Because,
I can see what you mean. You're going down those cliches, but
like
the
a
gender
female
reversed.
role in a male movie is also not very good. So, like, I don't know how that would compliment him, but like that particular scene didn't rub me the wrong way. I thought it was fine, because like she was fine in every other scene. So I think it's just to show that, you know, he loved her enough to notice those things. I think that's literally it. Yeah,
It's good.
yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to ask now is that you mentioned that you really enjoyed Pedro Pascal and pretty much the movie himself without anyone else. Would you have preferred it to be called Pedro Pascal 1984?
Oh my god.
Would that have made you go and see it more so? Or do you think you would have enjoyed it more?
I mean, with the way he acted, it might as well have been named that, to be quite honest.
I said, like, my issue is that Wonder Woman's arc, and this is very basic, I'm just use your words. It's very simplified. It's very... She doesn't have a lot of growth. Her thing is to understand that she needs to let go of Steve, basically. And that the lesson she was tried to be taught at a young age is important to her now. And that's literally about the character growth, which is fine. There's definitely, I said to Ryan, there's definitely movies I've seen with less character growth. But when you've got other characters in the movie that aren't the title character having much bigger arcs, like Pedro Pascal's character, it's such a weird movie to go... It feels like the writers wanted to tell his story more than they wanted to tell the title character.
Which is like, they should have matched her arc with Max Lord.
Yeah, I think there's something going on there that there's a missed. This is where I go. There's a missed opportunity here. There's a bigger picture going on where, and I said to Ryan, when it kind of zigged in a certain direction, it should have zagged, and when it zagged in the direction that it did, you're like, why did you do that? And I think that's what made me when it started taking me out of the movie personally, was because of the fact that I'm sitting there going, hang on, what did you do that for? Like, but I can still see, like, as I said, I love the action sequences and all that sort of stuff. There's definitely cool stuff going on. It's just, was it the right blend? And I think Ryan and I kind of had the same opinion, where we saw it as like an okay movie, but it, not. And it's good. I think it's just good to hear that you've got a completely different take, because you saw a different angle than we didn't, because most of the time we sit here and we're in this ridiculous echo chamber between us and go, Star Wars, it's great.
Yeah. My friend also told me something interesting about the scene with him and his son, you know, when he like hugs him.
Yes.
And goes, I love you. And his son's like, I love you. He said that everyone might be crying to that scene at the end because it could be pent up emotions of us not having closure for Mandalorian. So seeing him with another like son saying things that he should have said to, like, spoiler alert, Grogu. It's just a combination.
It's not a bad call.
Maybe it's actually almost spot on, which it kind of works.
Can I add one little element of twist to it? Maybe in some countries where people are not allowed to hug physically attach themselves to other people because of COVID, they may also be like, oh, there's also a connection going on there.
That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at all these. I did read a lot of comments about people looking at movies, especially watching old movies, and like, you couldn't do that now. You couldn't be that close to someone, without them getting sick. Wear their masks. Like, people taking
That's
old
really
movies and
awkward.
making themselves feel like
Yeah.
uncomfortable watching old things. So
Probably a good thing it was set in 1984. Yeah.
maybe that's the reason why.
Yeah,
No, I think it was planned.
No,
I
it
still
was.
can't figure out why it was set in 94. Like I said, I can see from a greed element, like because of obviously 80s excess, it kind of makes sense for the Maxwell Lord character, but you could thematically set that still, as you said, now. It's still got some
Yeah.
relevance now, and it would make difference. And other than the mall shopping scene, and
Yeah.
as Ryan pointed out,
What
the thing
Steve
Steve
was
was wearing, going through that wardrobe thing, which is just more like for humor's sake. I don't know, what more could have been added.
Yeah, that's a lot of the reviews I've seen online as well. Like, a lot of people actually like hated this sequel, and said that a lot of it was spent on wardrobe changing, which is not
right.
wrong.
Yeah, it's not wrong.
It's not wrong. So
The only one
Yeah.
to not change wardrobe was Max Lord, with Pedro Pascal.
For the
Yeah,
most part,
he's
yes,
had
in
the
a
same
suit.
Wore the
suit.
same suit.
For the most
Yeah.
of it,
the whole thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. I said to Ryan as well that maybe there's like a George Orwellian kind of 1984 control power thing going on there, and with the wishes being fulfillment of control.
Is it
But-
when the comic was based on? Have we checked that?
No, I don't think
It
so.
could
I mean, the
be.
characters obviously Maxwell would exist, but
Right, yeah.
I haven't checked if there's an 80s
Yeah.
set version.
Speaking of Max Lord, you've seen Supergirl, right, babe? So what do you think of, like, is there a good comparison between the Supergirl Max Lord and the Wonder Woman Max Lord?
I can't even remember Max Lord in Supergirl, so
Anne's done better than
can't-
you
I
at this.
can't make a comparison, unfortunately. Sorry.
All the nerds are like, Ryan!
Oh, great.
Like, I probably do if I watch it back, but at the moment I've got
Yeah.
no memory of who Max Lord is.
I don't
in
know
Supergirl.
either, but there is definitely a Max Lord in Supergirl.
Completely unsure.
All right, so something for you to look
Maybe
into.
it's one of the seasons I haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, something for you to look into before the next episode, then, Ryan.
Possibly.
Cool, so that's my review.
Thanks, Anne. Much appreciated. Well, I think that's all we have time for this episode. A little bit shorter than the usual, which has been good, I think. It's not a bad one to kind of come in around the 2-hour mark, other than the closer to 3-hour mark.
Yeah, especially for recording and for your listening pleasure.
Yes, a lot to cover at the start. Obviously, we'll be talking more about a lot of that Marvel and Star Wars and Disney stuff in the future. I didn't think it was worth us breaking much down beyond what we needed to.
It'd be much longer.
Yeah, well, it's not that it's much longer, but I think there'll be more to come out in the future. So yeah, we are obviously coming up to our 24th episode, the next episode, which is amazing, as we talked about before the end of year special. Was just the fact that we've been doing this for 2 years. It's absolutely been incredible. We are on YouTube and Podbean and Stitcher and Apple podcasts and Spotify. We have expanded into as many as I can find, and I'm probably going to add some more in the future. YouTube as well, obviously.
Our page on Facebook as well. Make sure
Page
to
on
follow
Facebook,
that
yeah,
if you
like
aren't
that.
already.
Feel free to share, subscribe, and let other people know about these two crazy Kiwis talking random as news and junk.
Yeah, just random stuff and going on weird diatribes and off tangents.
Yeah. And for some reason, a lot about Cobra Kai lately, because we've just been watching that, which is kind of funny. But Ryan, you need to. I'm going to actually say before we get into this, we need to make this year the year that you start watching more stuff, more older stuff, not maybe
that's
necessarily
true.
movies.
That's true.
And start getting, because I really enjoyed that back and forth with you about Karate Kid, the second and third ones, because you hadn't seen them, and I had. I mean, I don't mind if it's a movie I haven't seen, because we can obviously, much like talking about Wonder Woman, we can talk about it. But I actually enjoyed being able to ask you questions where I posed an idea to you and then let you kind of think about it and where you saw a movie going and so forth. So I think we need to start thinking about, like,
We'll make that a thing for this year.
yeah, we need to get to see like Godfather and Scarface, for example. I know those have come up in the past, and like maybe some other comedies that you haven't seen. So maybe this is something we need to think about each episode. We need to pull out a couple of things. The thing that I got you watching the other day was The Boys, which we'll probably talk about at some point, because I've seen both seasons and you haven't. So we'll probably talk about that, but maybe more of that stuff. So are you keen to do some more of that this year? Cool. We'll think about that.
Sure.
Thank you again for listening to us. As we said before, just share and subscribe, and we will catch you around for episode 24.
So.